Toku Secrets is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hey everybody, it's Jason from Power Rangers Time Force, and you're watching Toku Secrets Podcast.
Welcome to Toku Secrets. Join us as we journey into the marvelous world of Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Power Rangers, and many other tokusatsu. Get ready for the adventure of a lifetime. It's Morphin time! Link to the Morphin. I'm Nathan Desai, the dazzling adventurer, Boken Silver.
I'm Patrick Allen, I'm Shinken Red.
And I'm Rizwan Merchant, Gokai Red.
And I'm Anthony Davis, also known as Curie Green. And we're Toku Secrets.
Hey guys, and today on the Toku Secrets podcast, we are going to be taking a look at Mirai Sentai Timeranger 21 through 33, where we've kind of expanded the number of episodes we're doing just because we want to dedicate a whole podcast to the in-game arc, and so we need to add a couple of episodes to this podcast and the next so that we can just cover the in-game arc in its own podcast. So with that said, just going to give a brief recap. Although before we do that, just want to say one thing. I am very close to finishing the entire Showa era of Super Sentai, and I just want to say that for anybody who's curious about the Showa era, how we're going to cover those, the only two Showa era Sentais, and I can say this with confidence now, that we will give full episode by episode podcasts are Live Man and Flash Man. Everything else, we're just going to do one whole podcast.
Now, Nate, we all know we need to do a Battle Fever J episode by episode breakdown.
Yeah, that's just such a stupid joke that I'm not even going to respond to that.
Well, you just did.
You did. Okay, yeah.
Congratulations.
You played yourself.
It's not punk.
And not to say that that Live Man and Flash Man are the only two good ones. Like, a lot of them are good. In fact, I would say that the majority of them are good, with a few exceptions, but they're not a lot of the fillers just tend to blend in to the point where we would just get bored. I mean, and Go Ranger is 84 episodes long, and 90% of it is filler. So we don't want to torture ourselves doing that. No. So yeah, just wanted to give that brief update. I'm finishing Bioman hopefully next week, and I'll be able to have it done by then. And by the time this is posted, I'll probably be done with it already by then. But anyway, let's jump into Time Ranger. Sorry for that little just a side that tangent thing. But
how dare you?
Okay, yeah, how dare me? Whatever. So to do a brief recap of what happened from Time Ranger case files 11 through 20. So the couple of big things happened. Honami Moriyama, she's this photographer who encountered the Time Rangers. She discovered their identities, and she developed a crush on Domon as Time Yellow. And she knows the Time Rangers' identities, but she thinks that Ayase is Time Yellow. So that's kind of a weird romantic, I don't want to say love triangle, but I mean, it kind of is. So Gian, Donero's robotic partner, that's Frax in Time Force, he unleashed a powerful robot on the city, and a new robot called the Time Shadow appeared to help the Time Rangers in battle. Time Robo can transform into its warrior mode, and it can also combine with Time Shadow has its own warrior mode, and it combines with Time Robo to form either Shadow Beta or Shadow Alpha. We've only seen Shadow Beta so far. Gian holds the key to Hell's Gate, a vault of dangerous and violent prisoners, and he's actually keeping a spare key for himself. And he also, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's going to have a huge impact on later stories. He used a powerful energy crystal called the Lambda 2000 to transform into a 30th century Zeta 3. And that actually caused a pulse in the space-time continuum, which had a huge effect on the timeline. And speaking of the timeline, the Asami Group, that's the company owned by Time Red's father, they created a tank called Rame to battle the Londars, and they're also having another plan for defense against the Londars. So just some huge signs on how everything that's happening is having a huge effect on the timeline. So with that said, we got a couple of filler episodes to kick this off first. We have the episode Shion Style, filler episode, Shion-centric, as you can tell from the title. Pretty much the best way to sum up this episode is that the Londars are going around selling 30th century alcohol. The other 4 Time Rangers all get drunk, and Sion has to take down the monster by himself. He actually modifies the Chrono Changer to create the Excel Stop, which is a 3-second option that allows the Time Rangers to attack at a much faster speed. The Time Force Rangers did use this every once in a while, but I don't remember it getting like a huge formal debut in the show. And
oh no, they just use it automatically. There wasn't any like like build up to it, or like, oh, they can do this now. Like it was already part of their arsenal, like immediately.
This episode is the debut of the other Time Shadow combination, Shadow Alpha. This episode was unadapted in Time Force, obviously, because you can't show alcohol in kids shows in the US. And the only way that the suit for the monster of the day in this episode was used, they say, and I looked this up and I did confirm it, it was used among a bunch of mutants that appeared while Ransik was like forming his gang of mutants in his flashback in the 4th episode. So that's the only time that the suit was used. So anybody want to go first talking about this episode? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if I texted you this, Nate, but I thought about texting you this beforehand. I think every Sentai needs to have one episode where the cast somehow inadvertently gets drunk. Because that was funny.
It was pretty funny.
So, yeah, it just made me laugh that they were just that drunk and incapable, and I'm just like, dude, why don't we have this more often? Like, forget the hot sauna episodes or whatever. Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
The only other, there was an episode from a Sentai, but I'm not going to mention at the risk of triggering Riz. But the only other one I can remember is there was one episode of Die Ranger where a monster was like spraying sake all around, and he made like Shishi Ranger and one other. Maybe it was Tenma Ranger, I can't remember, but that was kind of funny because like Shishi Ranger gets sprayed in the face, and then he just randomly says, "I'm drunk."
You also are skipping over the most obvious example.
Which one?
Senkenzer, with that idiot who gets drunk all the time.
Who gets drunk all the time in Senkenzer? Dokoku, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But.
And then American adaptation has to say, he's taking headache medicine like Rita Repulso.
That was so stupid.
It was.
And, before I watched the Sentai, I was like, I guess he is taking a lot of headache medication. That would make sense because he looks like he has a headache. Nah. He's just that.
It would have been funny, though, to see Takaru get drunk.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
I wonder how that would have worked.
Hot garbage until the end. But then we drunk hot garbage.
I love the ending, though, especially where Sion is like, "Hey, guys, I took this photo while you were all drunken party animals." And then there's like, "Okay, Sion, give us that photo and no one gets hurt."
My favorite is Yuri's.
Give us the photo.
I think Yuri's reaction was the best part of it.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the part that I really like about this is that and keep in mind I've seen quite a bit of Sentai. Like I think this episode, like every Sentai has like someone who's supposed to be like the brains, like the smart person of the team.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this episode makes Sion out to be the brains of the team more than like any other Sentai Ranger I've seen, because like he takes the chrono changers apart and modifies them. Like I've never seen another Brainiac type of Sentai Ranger do that.
He's basically, I think he's inspired off of Billy.
Yeah, I would like, because Billy is the only other example I could come up with, and Billy is a Power Ranger, so
yeah,
you know what I mean.
No, but Billy's the closest thing you're going to find in the fandom.
Mm-hmm. Patrick, Anthony, you want to say anything about this one?
Nah, it was kind of a whatever episode to me.
The only thing that I remember was of course, the Time Rangers being drunk. That was it.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I remember looking back at it now.
Okay.
Like, it didn't really leave an impact beyond the fact that I enjoyed them being drunk.
Yeah.
What do we want to give it out of 10?
Because it made me laugh, give it like a 7.
I'll give it an 8 just because I found it really entertaining.
I mean, it was pretty whatever outside of that, so I'll give it like a 5 or something.
I'll give it a 7 as well.
Okay, cool.
Patrick, are we switching roles today?
Who knows?
Let's see what the next episode does.
All right, so we have Case File 22, Pink Temptation, a Yuri-centric filler episode. This is one episode where the plot is kind of similar to the Time Force episode, but the way they end up, it has the same concept, but the episodes go different routes. So there's a Londars who has a human disguise. She's disguised as this beautiful woman, and she's going around trying to, well, okay, in the Time Force episode, she just transformed so that she could brainwash Wes, Lucas, and Trip into doing her bidding because, you know, to use the Rangers to Ransic's will. But here she's going around trying to, like, use her beauty to extort money from unsuspecting men, and Yuri has to take action. Only real thing to note is that, and you guys know the drill with this, it's another pre-TimeFire episode that was adapted into a Quantum Ranger era episode of Time Force, and Eric does not appear in that episode because he's just not seen or mentioned, which is fine because Eric is not part of the main team. He's out doing his own thing, so it makes sense. But actually, no. I'll let the other guys go first before I say anything.
I can be very quick.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't like this episode.
Me neither.
It wasn't like, until you mentioned the synopsis, Nate, I legitimately forgot this even happened. And when you started talking about it, I was like, oh, wait. I hated this episode.
And why is that?
Yeah, it's pretty much...
It just kind of... They tried to make it Yuri-centric and make it, character development for her, but this isn't the character development I wanted for her. I wanted her to get something more in-depth, like how Jen got. And up until this episode, we've gotten nothing really, really substantial for her or Tatsuya, but we will later on. We'll talk about that in this podcast.
Yeah.
But this is not it.
Yeah, Anthony was saying this in the Instagram chat that he thinks the Time Force episode was better, and it definitely was, because they used that as an opportunity to not actually no, probably a bit bigger than I remember, actually, where to kind of further the Wes and Jen story. So yeah, I mean, honestly, the only issue I had with the Time Force episode, and even then, this is just me nitpicking, is that Contemptra, that was the name of the monster in the episode, she didn't try to go after Eric. But again, I mean, just nitpick. I mean, that's something I can overlook. I would
say maybe he was out of town, or like maybe he was in some kind of like training facility or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making up something on the spot.
But I mean, that's not a big deal because I get it. I mean, you're limited by the Sentai footage. You got to do with what you can. So
yeah.
Although that lady that was playing Contemptra, whoa, she was hot.
Yeah, she was. You want to say something, Patrick?
No, I'm kind of in the same foot as Riz. I actually forgot this episode existed. And that's my thoughts.
And then my other issue with this episode is the fact that they were focusing too much on that dude with the kid, and I'm just like, this dude's not gonna be is not gonna be a part of this episode any longer. Why are we focusing so much on him? I mean, we get it because like, oh, that was the lady, but like, this could have could be easily worked around if they didn't involve this random guy and his kid. They could have focused on like, oh, well, this lady was going around like, fall in love with guys or whatever, and so happens that she used that plan to lure out the Time Rangers to get them to fall in love with her. Like, that would have been a perfect plan to me.
And one other thing, how dare the Londars in this episode call Yuri ugly? Like, are you blind? Like, seriously.
I mean, have
look
you
at
looked at Donero?
Yeah, I'll say.
Patrick, are we the same brain now?
It's like your boss is a Macy's Day Thanksgiving parade balloon. Okay, I don't think you guys have any room to talk.
No. You know what he is, Patrick? He's a dollar store discount bargain bin version of the Piranha Drone guy in season 2 of Mighty Morphin.
Dang.
No, I'm sorry. Yuri is a cutie. I'm not going to tolerate that. Like,
I agree with you, Nate, but I want to make the rest of my comment.
Go ahead.
This guy is so bad. Like, I hate Donero so much. Like, he is basically Piranha Drone's discount dollar bin child who should never have existed.
Oof.
Like, why couldn't Jin just been the guy from the beginning?
I know. Like, what can you do?
And, I thought by this point, people told me he'd be gone. But is he? Nope.
He just seems very irrelevant at this point.
Again, there's a reason why Time Force just dissolves him down to a comic relief villain.
And it works. He works better as a comic relief, like a side comic relief character. I wouldn't put this guy as big boss. That type of thing.
That's kind of my biggest issue with him, is that the situations he causes are bigger than he is as a villain.
Yeah.
So like,
can we even call him a villain?
I mean, he is a mob boss in theory.
He's more of a criminal than a villain.
But because I mean, it seems like he still has some kind of weird moral code to him where he doesn't want things to get too out of hand.
Yeah,
I don't understand this guy.
Yeah,
what's really interesting though? He looks more intimidating in his human form than he is in his actual like monster form.
Yeah, he looks like an actual mafia boss.
Yeah, it's like if you stay in that form, people would actually take you seriously.
And honestly, he feels like somebody that, because eventually Gian is going to do something that's probably going to thrust him fully into the main antagonist role. And I think at some point, Del Nero might actually become a slight ally to the Time Rangers when that happens.
I hope not.
I'm taking a shot in the dark here.
I'm not spoiling. Patrick. I'm not spoiling.
I'm not going to say that he becomes full on like an ally, but they're going to put aside their differences because they realize that Gian is just too big of a problem, because I can't see him like conceding the seat of power when the time comes.
Yeah.
So
what do we want to give 22 out of 10 though, guys?
4.
I'm gonna give it a 3 because it like I said,
I'm gonna be a little nice to it. I see the issues that you guys have with it, so it definitely lowers my original score, but I still want to give it a 5 just because I felt sorry for Yuri throughout most of this episode, and maybe it's just
our scores are 2.
That's why I gave it a 3. That's why I give it a 3.
Yeah. Anything? Were you going to say something else, Riz? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Okay.
I was going to say that I'm giving this a 2 because it's that terrible. It's like the twosome terribles.
That's actually funny how you say twosome terribles, Riz, because like when I write on my blog and I give something like an episode something out of 10, I always have to say like 1, like 0 and 1 is atrocious, 2 I call terrible, 3 bad, 4 poor, 5 meh, 6 okay, 7 good, 8 great, 9 excellent. So yeah, 2 for terrible. That makes sense.
Well, I'm making the talk about like the terrible 2s.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, speaking of terrible 2s, episode 23.
Oh god.
All right, so this is a Tatsuya-centric episode. It's called Beat Up. It's basically an episode about Tatsuya getting injured when the latest Londars is going out and absorbing energy and it's threatening a festival. A little bit of Easter egg here. There is actually a stand in the background with a bunch of masks for sale, and among the masks you can see Jetman's Red Hawk and Kaku Ranger's Ninja Red, and also Kamen Rider Black. So that's pretty cool. Big thing that happens here is that we get a new weapon that Shion creates called the Assault Mobile. It combines with one of the Time Rangers' Spark Vectors. That's the bigger unit of their double vector swords to become the Assault Vector. This was called the Electro Booster in a Power Rangers Time Force. And yeah, that about sums up the
I don't remember this weapon in Time Force at all.
Okay, I thought it was a Sentai exclusive.
Yeah, I know.
Really?
Honest to God, do not remember this thing being in Time Force.
You guys don't remember Wes using this thing unmorphed in the finale and him shooting up robots with it?
How do you not remember?
Awesome,
I remember that. I remember the weapon.
I don't.
I haven't watched Time Force. Oh God, Patrick, help me out here. When did we do the Digiranger review?
For Time Force?
Yeah.
Probably like a decade ago.
Exactly.
Literally a decade. I
don't know. Maybe it's because it wasn't as significant in Time Force, but I honestly do not remember this.
No, I'm looking forward to my Time Force rewatch after this is over.
Yeah, because Wes has one pretty badass moment with it unmorphed when he uses it. Just saying.
Yeah.
And it was a trip. It was a trip focus episode in the adaptation.
As it kind of like be.
As like, I definitely enjoyed it better in Time Force. I don't know why they.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't make this a Shion. I mean, I guess I kind of get it that like you just did a Shion episode like 2 episodes ago, so it would seem a little bit redundant. But like,
no,
why not?
Shion's the best character. Keep him going.
But why not have like? I think it would have been better if like this was the Shion centric episode and like maybe do like have an episode where both Shion shares the spotlight with one of the other good characters, and that's what leads him to creating like the Excel stop. Because I don't know, like the Assault Mobile, this seems like a bigger weapon to give Shion a focus episode than like some application of the Chrono Changers, I guess you could say. What did we think? But what did you guys think of this one?
Okay, so while y'all deliberate, I'm gonna say, if it wasn't for Shion being given a little bit of spotlight to create a new weapon, I was probably gonna give this another 2. But because Shion had a chance to sign and he's my boy, I'm gonna award this a 4.
I'll probably give it probably a 5. I mean, it didn't have nothing bad about it, but nothing terrible either. I mean, nothing good either.
I just didn't like.
You can go.
Oh, you sure? Oh, my bad.
You can go.
What I was gonna say was that like I just didn't like the fact that Tati was just a bit pushy this episode. I'm just like, dude, take a chill pill. Like I get it, like he was excited or whatever, but like you need to relax. And it got so bad to the point where like he almost gets everybody killed, even though he didn't know. I get the fact he didn't know about the aliens. Let's just say his capacity to level a whole entire like block with his ability or whatever to get hit with whatever attack or whatever. But at the same time, he should have just not handled it by himself. Why would he just tell, hey, I got this, y'all just keep doing what y'all doing? I'm like, no, like you've never done this before. Get them to help you.
So
they're the time travelers here, not you.
Yeah. I might be future projecting here with later episodes. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Tatsuya is always on the sick bed.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I don't know if that's something because in later episodes he's on the sick bed a good bit, but I am getting tired of this guy always getting beat up and being put in a hospital bed.
Mm-hmm.
He is very reckless compared to Wes, that's for sure.
Yeah, because like what happens
really
with Wes, he gets injured, but sometimes it's not really his fault, honestly, with Wes.
No, Wes at least has a sound plan some of the time. I don't remember, like I said, it's been 10 years, but I remember Wes being pretty intelligible.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tatsuya's like, what? There's a room of 40 armed guards charging head first. Ow, why am I in pain?
No, I thought Wes was a little reckless.
Leroy Jenkins.
I thought Wes was a little reckless early on, but by the time Eric appears, he's a bit less reckless.
And that's something we'll touch on later on, because I did notice that too.
Yeah.
I mean, Jin's been reckless too.
And the more I think about this, like in the Time Force adaptation of this episode has probably a scene that I just thought was kind of cute. So the Time Force episode is all about Trip thinking that he's worth less than the other Time Force Rangers. There's a scene where a bunch of kids bring some toys to play with, and there's a bunch of Power Ranger costumes in there, the Time Force Ranger costumes. And these kids are like, I want to be red because he's awesome. I want to be blue because he's the coolest. And I want to be yellow because she's the strongest. And Trip is just sitting there like, nobody wants to be green. What? No.
I remember that vaguely.
Yeah.
Like, that was a cute scene, honestly. Like
it is.
And then by the end, they all dress up as Trip. Even the kids have like Green Ranger costumes. That was pretty dope. I like that.
Yeah. You guys want to move on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right. This is a filler episode called Yellow, Sometimes Blue. It's another episode revolving around the Honami story arc where so pretty much she gets stuck with ISA. She gets injured and ISA is trying to take her to a hospital. And she gets caught in the middle of the latest Londar's rampage. And she continues to suspect ISA is Time Yellow, and she actually sees him disappear in the middle of a battle, and then Domon jumps out from where he was as Time Yellow. And she also notices that ISA's mannerisms are very different from Domon's, which, I mean, that's noticeable because ISA and Domon are very different characters. And a huge thing that happens here is that at the end of this episode, Domon kind of thinks, well, we're in two different time frames. So even if we get together in a relationship, it's going to be incredibly awkward. So, and I'm going to have to go back to the 30th century eventually anyway. So, and he decides to let her go. Like, very emotional thing. This is kind of important in this episode because it does kind of set the stage for a few later episodes, but we have a new motivation for Doniro where he is now going to start unleashing Londars to destroy land so that he can buy it cheap and then sell it so that he can make money. So that does show that he's kind of doing a little bit more destructive stuff than he was previously doing. The only other thing to note is that this is a pre-TimeFire episode adapted into a Quantum Ranger era episode of Time Force, but this one is actually different because Eric was actually in that episode and he did morph. They take the final battle footage of Domon and ISA battling the monster, and it's recontextualized to where that monster was attacking Biolab, and the main five Rangers force him out, and they battle him while Eric is out trying to fight off Rancic. While he was attacking Biolab, and then later taking Mr. Collins to the hospital. So, yeah, what do we think about this episode, guys?
See, this might be the most evil thing Del Nero has done because he's basically committing insurance fraud.
Basically.
Oh my god.
He's gone too far this time.
No, I have to agree with you there, Pat.
Yeah, I mean that is pretty evil when you think about it.
It is.
But
It's actually pretty smart too.
Genuinely though, this Honami Domon thing is really catching my attention. Like the more we get into it.
Okay.
Because
I have to ask real quick because I don't remember anymore. Did I like Honami's story arcs the last 2 times we did a podcast?
You were saying it was fine enough, but like you said that like you felt like you were being forced to like a character, but you didn't sign up to follow.
Okay, that sounds like a very Rizwan thing to say, and I still agree with that. But having a slight change of heart towards her, because I think the show has finally convinced me to like her, even though I didn't want to, because she's not needed. Like, her story arc is getting more entertaining than other stuff I've seen, and it's probably because by the time I got to this episode, I had fatigue of bad story and bad episodes for like the last 3. And so seeing something with decent story writing made me really cling to it and be like, oh, thank God. Something somewhat decent.
And it's cool because it doesn't... I was afraid that this was going to be
finally some good freaking stories.
Yeah, no. I was afraid this was going to be something like she just fell in love with him due to basically like being starstruck or something. But no, I think Domon saving her that one time had like a genuine impact on her person, on her character, and she's like genuinely caring about her. And when Domon realizes this, when she said that she had like wished for his safety at that shrine and stuff, it hit Domon right in the heart. And
now
that's
why Domon Domon has to like not be near her.
Yeah, now he's like afraid of getting too close for like protecting her emotions and stuff. I'm like, this is getting genuinely like sweet and wholesome in some ways. No, I'm actually rooting for this to happen now too.
This writer gave us that Ginga Blue romance story.
Yeah, it's just that was a great romance cycle plot.
Honestly,
too, so.
The more I think about the Hanami story arc throughout this set of episodes that we watched and the stuff prior, I think this is slightly where Saban pulled the Wes and Jen. Wow, I'm really on the drugs right now. For those that haven't figured it out,
Riz is under some pain medication for a condition that he has. He's okay. He's going to be fine, but
I'm not all here.
Okay.
But I can see where Saban got the idea for some of the love story with Jen and Wes.
Yeah.
It's not as predominant in Time Ranger as it is in the Power Ranger adaptation. But I can kind of see, it's not a bad idea, but I don't want to give it to the Yellow and Blue Rangers. I want to give it to the Red Ranger because Red Ranger main character stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we want to give this out of 10, guys?
I'm honestly giving this an 8.
Yeah, I'm going with an 8.
It's weird that you labeled. It's honestly weird that you labeled this as a. It's weird that you labeled this as a filler episode, and I actually think this episode is kind of story important.
It is.
Yeah, I could probably. Yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of, Anthony, what were you going to give it out of 10?
8.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, so we're about to get into some pretty story-handed stuff because we got a 2-part episode and then a huge story arc that has some huge implications for the story. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we have Case File 25, Broken Trust, and then Case File 26, The Countdown of Trust. Funnily enough, these 2 episodes were adapted into 1 episode of Time Force. But it's a 2-parter here, and it revolves around Tatsuya and Yuri. So as the episode begins, we Yuri is, really frustrated with Tatsuya because he fails in a training simulation where basically they were simulating a hostage situation, and Tatsuya was supposed to use a bullet that would knock out the people taking hostage, but he was afraid that it would hurt Ayase because of his heart condition. So he hesitated and did something else stupid, and that would have resulted in the Time Rangers getting killed. So Yuri gets frustrated. We actually find out in a flashback that as a kid, Tatsuya was frequently bullied as a kid because he didn't get along with his class. He didn't fit in with his classmates because they just thought, he's dumb. The only reason he's even here is because of his rich family name. And his grandfather started teaching him karate, and the reason why karate appealed to him so much was because nobody else in the Asami family had karate. So this was something that he could call his own and not have it be connected to his name all the time. And even as a kid, Tatsuya has always had a tendency to put on a happy face and goof off to hide his concerns. And Yuri hears this from Tatsuya's mom. So, she kind of sees Tatsuya in a new light. Now, unfortunately, the Time Rangers, they all get captured and put in another dimension from the Londars of the day, and they're forced to fight evil doubles of themselves. And that's where part 2 comes in, where Yuri and Tatsuya are able to escape, and they have to, and the only way that they can free the other Time Rangers is if they shoot at a vulnerable point in the dimension at the same time. While they're making their plan, Yuri and Tatsuya open up to each other, and Yuri reveals to Tatsuya as well, that she actually has her own difficulties because, remember, Yuri lost her whole family. So unlike everybody else in the Time Bureau Police, she never had anyone to go home to vent her stress to. And that was very hard on her, and she never had anyone to talk about with their anxieties. And thanks to that newfound trust, Yuri and Tatsuya are able to free their friends. Only other thing to note is that this is the very last pre-TimeFire episode to be adapted into a Quantum Ranger episode. And Eric did appear in that episode. He was just at the beginning, and he never morphed. So that was it. Riz, you actually texted me about some stuff related to this episode, and you just said in the chat, get ready for a Riz rant. So, the floor is yours, dude.
I was going to let Patrick and Anthony go first.
Oh, okay. Patrick, Anthony.
Patrick, you're talking, but you're on mute.
I'm trying to hotkey unmute my mic, but it keeps wanting to save this page to a bookmark. So I had to click the mic button manually.
Wow, what a lazy person.
Sorry. But I think this is the kind of the thing I've been waiting for, because we all knew that these two were going to start having their own love story like Jen and Wes did. They adapted that for Time Force for a reason. It's just that it's been very undercooked up to this point. But to finally give these two a moment to where they're alone together, and seeing Yuri open up to him, and her story about having literally no one to help her, be emotional and all this stuff with, it was pretty heavy stuff. And I just felt like that this episode was long overdue for the two of them.
Well, as for me personally, I thought episodes were okay.
Yes.
I think he froze.
I think we need to poke him and say, is he okay? Yeah, he froze.
I'll continue with my thoughts real quick. I think that this episode really didn't need to be stretched into 2 episodes, though. Because this episode, this two-parter was so good at doing stuff for Red and Pink that I don't think that the other side plot of the others being caught in that weird side dimension was really all that needed. It felt like it was just there to stretch the plot out for just needless reasons. But
no, I have thoughts, but I see Anthony's back, so we can try and let him talk again.
Are you unfrozen now?
My bad. I think I had no connection whatsoever. Like, it was like out for a second. I don't know what just happened.
Yeah, well, you can go now.
I think I might be having like some kind of like weird, because it's been stormy like as of late, and they said it was a tornado warrant earlier this afternoon. So I'm assuming that maybe
I know we had that stuff go through my place yesterday, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that too.
So if my internet kicks off again, you'll know why. It's because of the stupid weather.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
As I was saying, I like this episode, this two-parter, but my only issue really is the fact that it's Tatsuya. Really, he's the only thing I'm just. It's like, I get why he is the way he is. I just don't like it. Like, that's not really It's not really a good way of excusing his behavior. So to me, tell me that he avoids talking about things because, like, he wants to joke about it, and it's like that doesn't help his character at all for me. At least not for me.
Some people just. I'm not saying that I do it because I don't, but I do know a lot of people, and I kind of get it. Like, some people just deal with a lot more anxiety, and the only way that they can really cope is to just brush it off and pretend like it doesn't exist. And we can sit here all day and say that that's not healthy, and I agree it's not healthy, but
it's not. But
it's a very normal way that people do it.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've done that before when I was younger. I just,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a thing I sympathize with him with because I have a knack for doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
People called me tone deaf for it, but no. Oh well.
Tone deaf? Never.
Yeah, I know.
Can I say one thing before Riz starts his rant? Because this is just a minor nitpick.
Fine.
I don't. Okay, this in Georanger did something similar. I hate episodes where the Rangers have to fight evil versions of themselves, and the evil Ranger suits look exactly like their suits with no way to differentiate them. Because Georanger also did this, and it's okay if you make like a minor change. Like, for example, when the Neji Rangers / Psycho Rangers disguised themselves as the Rangers, you could differentiate them because those squares on their chest were all like a purplish, black thing. Or when the Mystic Force Rangers and the Operation Overdrive Rangers fought clones of them, they made the neck of their suit black instead of white. I just hate that because you can't tell who's who. I guess we're supposed to assume that the Ranger that has the upper hand in the fight is the evil one.
No. You would think so. But when I was watching the fights, I was watching very carefully. And some of the times that they're fighting, our main characters are getting their asses handed to them.
Now, like the evil Rangers are the ones that are like, kicking the butt.
Yeah, but it's a back and forth. At some points, they're kicking butt. Other points, their butts are getting kicked.
Yeah.
And that's part of my frustration. It's not my main frustration. It's like a side note, like you said.
Yeah.
And I didn't care for it because I was like, okay, could we just... What they could have done, and have been brilliant, is bring in a whole set of 5 suits that look very similar to TimeFire and have them fight those versions of the suits. And then let that be like a setting up for like, oh, hey, here's a real TimeFire suit. It's 20 years
like the areas that are normally white are instead black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been better.
Yeah, like a foreshadowing.
Right.
I'm sorry. And it thankfully they stopped, like in the next Sentai, they do one where they fight evil Rangers and they make their suits predominantly black. So thankfully after this season, anytime they face evil Rangers, they do one thing different. And there's only one other Sentai I remember doing it. It was a Geo Ranger episode, that one Geo Ranger episode that I dubbed the worst Sentai episode of all time, but I'm not talking about that.
Nope.
But yeah, I just wanted to make that brief nitpick. I don't like it when Sentai does it, and I just wanted to bring awareness to that.
Yeah. Okay. Ready?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to start off by saying I enjoyed this character development a lot because it really kind of gave something to both Tatsuya and Yuri. And up until this point, I'm sorry, both of these characters have felt extremely two-dimensional, extremely lacking in anything to do with a character. And they just kind of were there to fill the suits, in my opinion. But then we get this like insecurity stuff with Tatsuya and with Yuri, and I'm like, why couldn't we have had this from the beginning? Like, why couldn't this have been like an early episode, like episode 7 or 8, and let this be something that the two of them had to work through for the rest of the season? That would have been so amazing. But no, instead we get stupid episodes like consistently Tatsuya going off and getting his ass kicked and ended up in a hospital bed. And Yuri going off and saying, I want to be a pretty girl too. Like, it's so stupid. I have a pretty high score for these 2 episodes. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But this lowered my score for most episodes that came before it.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the potential we could have had all along and we didn't have it. And we're at episode 26 by the time this is all said and done, I think. 26?
Yeah.
27?
Yeah.
So
I don't think it should have been done in the first 10, but maybe at least in the previous batch, like the 11 through 20, that would have been better time.
Exactly. Like, this came a little too late for me to care about it. Like, maybe I'll care about it as we continue on, but I'm always going to have in the back of my mind, like, where was this in the first part? Like, okay, going into anime real quick. A typical 4-season anime is 52 episodes long, like a Sentai. But they break it up into 13 segments that they play throughout the year and seasons. Normally, by episode 26 of an anime, you're at the mid-season finale. But you can't be at a mid-season finale here in Timeranger because the characters don't have enough development to do anything. Like, this is the first time we see any real character development for either of these 2 characters. And while it's great, it's too late.
It's like we should have had this sooner.
Yeah, but
they're way sooner.
Yeah, but they are going to keep it up. I mean, I can assure you that. So.
I mean, yeah, that's fine, but why waste the potential in the beginning to make something even greater? Like, you know, a lot of people have said, oh, Timeranger has really good character development, but looking at the way they're doing character development, I'm starting to disagree with people.
I mean, I think they still have good character development for the other 3. Just
no, absolutely. But people have told me, not you, Nate, but other friends of mine have told me that Red and Pink have some of the best character development in the Sentai as well. And I'm just like, I don't see it.
Would you consider, if they continue off the momentum at this, though, would you reconsider that opinion?
I mean, maybe. It depends on how they do it.
Okay.
It has to be done in a good way to make an impact. Like, they haven't really carried it out further since 27. Spoilers, not really sorry.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little concerned about that. And I'm also concerned with another story plot line that will hit later on, because that's also frustrating me as well about character development in this season.
Yeah.
So
I will agree that I think Time Force did it better with having their connection start way earlier in the season. But at the same time, I'm always a person of, if it finishes well, then I don't really care when it starts, as long as it's not like shoehorned in like the last 10 episodes or something.
Yeah.
But
and that's what
I think it'll be okay.
Well, okay, so
they still have half a season to work it out. So
yeah, it's frustrating, right? Like these storylines that we got here are so great that it feels like a very big injustice not having done anything with it sooner.
Yeah.
I guess we could talk about this again when we get to the end of the season, and then we can talk about how it was all done in hindsight. But
yeah, but that was my little rant.
I mean, I'll disagree with you. I mean, I think that, well, okay, maybe just with me, since I know more about Yuri, like, I do think that Yuri has been an okay character. I can understand where you're coming from with Tatsuya, but one thing that I do wish is that because this was something that Patrick was saying in our very first podcast, how Tatsuya's reasons for wanting to, like, not be associated with his family just seems so petty. But this episode kind of gives us a much more understandable reason why he doesn't want to be associated with his family.
And that proves my point.
Yeah.
If we had something like this in the get-go, in the first 5 or 6 episodes, we could have been working off of that, because that's the thing about Time Force that makes Wes so relatable. Yeah. It's from the get-go, we know about his dad and his drama, and failed expectations, and life of a rich snob or whatever. Like, we had all that stuff, like, slowly built up across the entire season, not just the last half.
Mm-hmm.
And Zen's story, I'm sorry, like, that's a much better story, because
100%.
Like, you can never compare Yuri and Zen.
Not even close.
I'm still sure there's a lot more to Yuri's character we still haven't seen yet.
Like, I want to see where it goes.
Yeah, I want to see because I feel like her story is going to be a lot different than Jen's. Obviously, I'm just curious as to how they're gonna go about handling it. But
I'm a little concerned.
I will agree with you, Riz, that the pacing for these two in Time Force was much better. But again, I'm going to wait until when we're done with the season before I fully judge it, because
What do we want to give this 2-parter out of 10, though, guys?
8.
I was gonna give this a 9 if I'm looking at it as like just a standalone 2-episode deal. But in the grander scheme of things, I'm going to give it an 8. I have to knock at points for being too late.
I want to give it a 10 just because I think just knowing stuff that's going to come later, I don't know. I really like how this character development is. So, I mean, it's just kind of a soft spot. Plus, I'm pretty sure I gave the Time Force episode a 9 because I really liked the Time Force episode.
Yeah.
And I feel like since I think this is better handled than the Time Force episode, I either have to give it a 9 or a 10 because I can't give it an 8 under both circumstances.
Right.
Anthony?
I think I'm all gonna get an 8 as well.
And I have to say, Nate, I'm kind of glad you didn't bring up your comment you gave me in text earlier as the response here.
Yeah, wait. What comment?
The one that would have set me off.
What comment did I make that set you off?
Go back and read your text later. It's okay. Just know that you didn't poke the bear this time. You've learned.
Oh. Yeah, okay, I know exactly what I said. Okay, I'm keeping my mouth shut on that.
see now, after this review, I gotta know what you said now.
See, the messed up part is I have no context for what you're talking about, but I also know exactly what you're talking about.
Anthony, I'll take a screenshot of it and send it into the group chat later.
Right, I'm looking like, really, dude?
Okay, because I don't want to leave the audience in suspense on what we're talking about in our private text. I'll just say it, but I'm not going to react to it.
Okay,
because it was kind of funny.
Say it at your own risk.
At your own risk.
I mean, I am Riz, so I can't say it at your own risk, right? Anyway, Nate responded to me complaining about this being too late with it's still sooner than what we got for Geki Ranger.
I mean, yeah.
I mean,
by this point, we had 2 new Rangers that had more character development in the span of like 2 episodes than the main 3 did in the entire series.
Yeah.
No, but okay.
But you know the fighting words for him, right?
But the funniest part to me is I responded back with, "Why the hell would you insult Timeranger this badly?" Like, I like the Timeranger cast more than I like the Geki Ranger cast.
Like don't mess this up. Don't make me.
Speaking of this, Riz, I agree with you on everything about Geki Ranger, but here's the thing: when I posted that review on my blog, I got a couple of not nasty comments because they said they respect my opinion, but a lot of people were disagreeing with me. So
I know.
I just hope you know that
They're all wrong.
Thankfully, everyone who messaged me about it was very respectful. It was there were no nasty comments, and I very much appreciate that. But
they're all wrong.
Riz is about to be like, yeah, but while he puts on boxing gloves.
Yeah, but.
But anyway,
I respect your opinion, but let's get to the ring.
Right hook.
Kamehameha!
All right, so next up we have Case File 27, The Small Hometown. Well, you could technically say this is a filler episode that's Shion-centric, but the ending does transition into the next big arc, so it's kind of the beginning of a 4-parter. It's weird, but
yeah, so kind of an odd way to end it.
So this episode revolves around the Time Rangers facing a Londars that's polluting a local beach, and Sion is interacting with this old man who's vowing to defend his home, and it's basically about him learning about the importance of a home. Couple of things to note. We actually have a new robot that's going to be with the Time Rangers from this point forward. Her name is Robota. She's a female robot that, basically serves, that helps Taku. Robota was never in Time Force, except in a weird, bizarre way. Remember that that episode that we reviewed earlier with the monster that was seducing the Rangers? Well, in the Time Force episode, the monster, Contemptra, while she's trying to seduce Trip, she is showing like, hey, I like designing robots just like you. And they use Robota's body.
Love Struck Rangers.
Yeah. But that's the only way that Robota was adapted in Time Force.
I just want to know which writer's kid they took that toy robot from, because there's no way they honestly created that thing and said, yeah, that looks like a futuristic... That looks like a background character in Toy Story.
Exactly.
It ends every sentence with the word time.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well, I mean, robot characters in Sentai always have these catchphrases that they end things with. Like, if you watch Go-Onger, all the engines have catchphrases that they have to end their phrases with. Like, Speedor constantly ends his phrases with, like, Doru Doru and so on.
Or who was their assist robot? The little
Bomper.
Yeah, Bomper. Yeah, he had his own little...
Bomb.
Yeah, Bomb.
Riz saw Bomper because it was in the Go-Onger tribute episode of Go-Kaiger.
Oh yeah, I forgot he came back in Go-Kaiger.
Didn't they say a lot of body or something?
That's the engines for.
That was Mach Alkin.
That's the engines.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Mach Alkin. Yeah.
I mean, Nate, it's still much better than how to hear "walkie walkie" over and over again.
Oh, 100%. I'm not complaining. And I'm also not complaining that
there's not a bunch of tab.
That there's a bunch of dumb gibberish in the titles of these episodes.
Oh god, yeah, I did not miss that.
Those episodes, it was such a pain.
I think my favorite part of this podcast, besides me ranting for hours, is listening to Nate try and pronounce that crap.
Yeah, like the next episode is like Gaiwa, and then finally at the end I'm like, nope, not even saying this anymore.
I mean, man, Nate, I had secondhand embarrassment for you every time you read off an episode title of that scene.
Yeah. It was bad.
Yeah, it reminds me, just for this brief tangent, my wife once showed me this video of like these two guys that like took their dad out to Starbucks and he didn't know what to order. So it was like, hey, what do you want? And he's like, I'll take like a Kiki, why, or something like that. And hearing their dad say that unironically, thinking that that's a real drink, it's like, oh my God, that poor man making him do that. Like, but anyway, getting back to this episode. So the big thing that happens at the end of this episode is that, so throughout this entire episode, Leela was holding the hotel hostage, and the hotel calls for help, and the help comes in the form of a group known as the City Guardians. If you watched Time Force, you know where we're going with this. They are a for-hire private army that the Asami group created, and there's a scene in this episode where Tatsuya's father Wataru was seen meeting with the defense official, and the episode ends with Leela attempting to flee from the hotel. The City Guardians arrive and block her from exiting, and they open fire on her Zenit foot soldiers. Only other thing to note is that the Londars of the day of this episode was never adapted. Her suit was used in the same Rancic Lives flashback that I mentioned earlier in this podcast.
I'm not even sure how they would even adapt this creature. In case people are wondering, this creature actually is what is known as a esthetician or a beautician, as we would probably prefer to use. Basically like skin, like takes like they specialize in skincare from what I read.
Yeah. But what do we think about this one, guys? Anybody want to go first?
I did like the Shion stuff in this episode. I know that's kind of like not the big draw of this episode because this is basically a setup for the next 3 episodes more so than anything else. But it was just more good guy Shion being good guy stuff, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I'm confused. I think my biggest issue with this, and it's kind of going almost kind of mirroring what Rizwan said about Tatsuya and Yuri's character stuff, is I kind of feel like the City Guardians should have been teased a little bit earlier than this.
Yeah.
Because it felt like that this just kind of came out of nowhere.
I mean, they hinted it partially when like Wataru said that they had another plan, but they probably
could have
shown some scenes here and there of like.
No, it would have been cool if they had like. Yeah, it would have been cool if they had like a couple episodes where they like looked in and showed like maybe like the soldiers being trained or something. So everybody's like, "What is this?" And then they show up and we're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
that's
like a montage of people like in the background training, and then we see this one guy that we think we might know, like who's this guy?
Yeah, it just felt like it was a little bit too sudden, but other than that, it was okay.
Yeah.
Riz,
you want to say anything?
It's a Sion episode. I would love those.
Fair enough. Okay, we're about to get into some pretty big stuff. So anybody else want to say anything about this episode? Or what do we want to give it out of 10?
7.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7 too. Anthony?
I'm gonna give it a 7 as well.
All right, guys, buckle up because we're about to get into an arc that I know everybody's been waiting for. So here we go, ready or not. We're going to talk about each of these episodes individually, since even though it is a 3-parter, I think it's okay to talk about them individually here. So, so we have Case File 28, A Time of Reunion. This episode picks up immediately from where the previous one left off, where the Time Rangers arrive. They find the City Guardians fighting Leela, and they defeat the Zenit, which is huge. And when they're withdrawing, one of them recognizes Tatsuya, and it's revealed that his name is Naoto Takizawa. He's an old rival of Tatsuya's from college. And we actually find out in a flashback that Naoto and Tatsuya were in karate club together in college, but he quit. Naoto did, because he felt he didn't fit in with all the rich kids because he was poor, and he only got in because of a karate scholarship. And that's important because that's going to come up in one of the later episodes. And as someone who, and Naoto always resented Tatsuya because Naoto grew up poor, and he would have died to have everything that Tatsuya had. And yet Tatsuya has all of this, and he wants to run away from it. So pretty big. But in more story sense, Gian releases another Hell's Gate prisoner, and he's setting up a machine threatening to enlarge this time pulse that he detects. And the Time Rangers race to fight the monster. His name is Juggle, and the City Guardians also get in the middle of the fight. And during the fight, Tatsuya takes a hit, and if you've seen Time Force, you know what happens. His visor gets busted open, and his identity gets revealed to both Naoto and Wataru. Wataru confronts his son, saying, like, what are you doing? You're a Time Ranger. And then Tatsuya says, Dad, you're only using the Londars as a business opportunity. And he basically gets frustrated with how his father's always tried to lay a path out for him, and he wants to make his own path. And then the episode ends. Tatsuya, so the Time Rangers freeze compress Juggle with the Voltec bazooka, and everything seems like it's ended all happy, handy, dandy. The Time Force episode actually does end happy, handy, dandy, because it's pretty much a single episode. But in this case, the time pulse breaks open, and a giant dinosaur called the V-Rex is unleashed, and it begins rampaging through the whole city, just as the Time Rangers try to summon their mechs to try and stop it. And that's how the episode ends. I just spoke for quite a bit. What do we all think about this episode, guys? Anybody want to go first?
I still... Okay, so I like the episode, but up until the end, I still have that Time Force biasism where I'm like, dang it, Time Force did it look better. I don't know what it is.
What would you say the Time Force did better, though? That's what I'm curious.
The whole thing with Wes and his dad, because like I felt there was more like because we know the drama between him and his dad. Obviously, it's the same thing in Time Ranger, but I feel like with him wanting his son to come back after he yells at him to come back or whatever, that made me go, wow, like they really put their heart into that. Whereas this it feels like, oh, the dad doesn't really even like care that much from what I'm seeing. I could be wrong, but that's just how I interpreted it.
This is how I look at it, is that Tatsuya's dad is so determined on proving himself correct that he's going to basically do anything he can to spite Tatsuya. When Mr. Collins felt more sympathetic towards Wes by comparison. Like, I know he didn't necessarily approve of what Wes was doing either, but he still came off as somewhat understanding. But Tatsuya's dad is just a petty turd. And he is becoming a very unlikable character.
Again, that's why I like Time Force better.
I mean,
because of that.
I think it's just as good, but for different reasons. Because the bigger conflict kind of makes the situation more engaging in Time Ranger, but at the same time, it's a lot more, I guess, heartwarming in Time Force. So it's like, it depends on which one you prefer more.
Well, for me, it's going back to my rant a few minutes ago. If they had laid the groundwork for Tatsuya earlier and really laid into the family drama more, because I know they had like one episode where there's some family drama, like episode 12 or 13, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they did a good enough job laying the groundwork there to have a big impact here.
Yeah.
Because like with Wes and Mr. Collins, we had that all throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Like every other episode, we'd at least see Wes and Mr. Collins interacting. And Mr. Collins would try,
Actually, like, in Time Force, and I've watched Time Force here, like, so the last time that I remember us seeing Mr. Collins prior to the Time Force equivalent of this episode was the episode where Wes leaves his father behind, which was the 6th episode of Time Force. Then after that, like, we don't see Mr. Collins for a good long time, and the reason why this is significant is because this is the first time that we've seen Wes and Mr. Collins interact since Wes left home. And
but that's the point. Like, Mr. Collins' impact is still felt, even if he's not really there, I think. Because in the beginning, they had such a big falling out, you know? Like, they made a big deal out of it.
Well, yeah, but I think that they do make a big deal out of it. But the thing is, Wes doesn't really mention the drama with his father over the next couple of episodes, and it's weird. And I actually find it weird how Mr. Collins is a main character in Time Force. He appears in the opening credits. So, and yeah, we don't really. I get what you're trying to say, and I do agree that the drama between Wes and his dad is better emphasized because we did see him over the course of like the first 6 episodes. Maybe he didn't appear in all 6 of those, but like four out of 6. And so I feel like the drama is established more, but yeah, I just wanted to say.
But 4 out of 6 is still better than 1 out of 26.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something kind of weird, and I think it shows, to me, I feel like that one's not necessarily better than the other, because you're right. I think Wes and his dad's conflict was more confrontational in Time Force by comparison to Time Ranger. But I think Tatsuya shows his resentment towards his dad a lot more than Wes does. Like, because I think like his father's company and kind of his dad showing up in like on like the news and stuff was a lot more prominent in Time Ranger, and you can see Tatsuya's like slight disdain for his own father show through more in his character than you did with Wes. So it comes off as somewhere in the middle. There's the perfectly written father-son conflict dynamic, but I don't think that one's necessarily better than the other per se.
I can see that, but my thing about it is I think Tatsuya was hiding his emotions a lot, and they explained why in the 2-part episode thing we just had. But I think unpacking that a little bit earlier to let it saturate.
Yeah, and especially because, like what you said, how Tatsuya likes to hide it, Wes is a lot more outgoing with what he thinks.
Right.
So that stuff is settled a little bit quicker with him. So,
well, but then also Tatsuya spends a lot more time acting really goofy. And so going between these 2 different polar ends is not a very easy sell.
No. I mean, I think it's just going to come down to how you prefer the story to be told to you on which one you think is being handled better.
Yeah, no,
and
definitely.
it's clear that you prefer Wes's take on the situation. Yeah, I mean,
I do want to. Like, did you want to say anything else related to this?
I'm done.
Now go back to it, Nate.
I do want to say this, like, on a different note. From a plot perspective, like with them debuting the TimeFire stuff, I feel like it's handled a lot better here because when it comes to character stuff, I'm not going to fight Riz on that. Time Force has done a lot better with our 2 main characters, and that's undisputable. But when it comes to like the story and plot, I feel like Time Ranger is doing things a lot better because here, and now I have 2 examples I can give you guys to really overarch it. The major plot points in Time Ranger are all going to have like a major payoff in the endgame arc. So this was Guillen's latest scheme, and in order to like kind of screw over the space-time continuum, which is established. This is a huge scheme, and as a result of it, and we're not there yet, but I mean, you can figure out where we're going. The 6th Ranger is born. in Time Force, it's all just a bunch of series of isolated events that aren't connected. Like even in the Time Force arc, Frax unleashes a robot. It's too powerful for the Rangers, and they need the Time Shadow. While in Time Ranger, Gian unleashes this robot to try and screw over the space-time continuum, and then that's what results. And here, in the Time Force episode, it's just, oh no, Frax unleashed this mutant, and it's too powerful. In this, it's, wow, Gian has come up with another plan to screw over the space-time continuum.
Yes, and isn't that, because I was sitting here watching this, and I know we might be skipping ahead a little bit, but didn't Wes and Eric have to go back in time to find something revolving around the Quantum Ranger?
I think the Q-Rex.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
That was Q.
Yeah, it was the Q-Rex. Yeah, but the V-Rex shows up immediately. I was surprised that he showed up before TimeFire did.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. Like through this, him screwing over this, opening up that time pulse, that results in the V-Rex appearing and the V-Commander appearing. We don't find that out to the next episode, but whatever.
Yeah,
but
I see what you mean, because it did feel like that everything surrounding the Quantum Range was just kind of like a fortunate series of events, where this is all like the result of somebody being planning something out and having it backfire in his face.
Yeah, literally in Time Force, I love the Time Force episode. I'm not trying to badmouth it, but the only thing that the Time Force episode equivalent to this does in relation to the Quantum Ranger story arc is that here's Eric. Remember him. He's going to be important in the next episode. So that's about it. And it's good. The drama between him and Wes is great, but I just feel like having it be more tightly connected to where Gian's latest plan results in the Sixth Ranger appearing, as opposed to the Time Force, where in the very next episode, these archaeologists who have nothing to do with the rest of the story, they just happen to say, oh, look, here's this cool little box. And then Rancic is like, oh, that's from Time Force. I'm going to go get that. Like, it's just isolated incidents.
I still like it better. You can explain it all you want to. I still like that story better. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah, it's fair enough. But, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I just feel like with how this story ultimately might also relate to the in-game story arc, which I'm not going to spoil anything, like, these are all, like, a series of events that slowly build up to what we're getting, as opposed to Time Force, where they're just isolated incidents.
I think part of the problem here, Nate, is that you have future sight that we don't have yet.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
And so I think there's no amount of explaining you can do right now to win us over on this argument until we get that point.
It feels like me trying to convince you that Takaru was a good character when I had hindsight with Shinken Red. So
we both did, yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
You all three had future sight on Takaru that I didn't have.
Yeah.
So this is going to be one of those things where you
when
might
we
have
get to
hold
the
off.
end.
You might have to hold off on like expecting us to be on your side on this argument until we get there.
It.
Yeah.
But what do we want to give this one out of 10, guys?
I think 8.5.
I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, I'll give it an 8 too.
Even with all my things that I've said about I like Time Force's episode better, I'm gonna give it a 9, honestly, because of the drama. It was well handled, and I did like the fact that in the end, all snap, we have the V-Rex that shows up at the end.
And one last thing, Anthony, I will give you this. I do think the argument that Wes had with Mr. Collins was it hit me a bit more than the fight between Tatsuya and Wataru, so I'll definitely give you that.
Exactly, yeah. I won't say that it didn't mean much, or I want people thinking like, oh, I hate Tatsuya that much that I don't everything he does bothers me, and I'm more biased towards Time Force. It's not really that. I am biased. I'm not in the hate Tatsuya train. I'll never tell people that.
All right, so let's move on to case file 29, the Fiery New Warrior. Now, just a thing to note, kind of a spoiler, but you can tell from this, in Sentai history, this is the latest it's ever taken a Sixth Ranger to debut. Because
I was about to ask you that question. So I was thinking that yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is the latest that Sixth Ranger is ever.
Unless you count Geki Chopper.
We don't count Geki Ranger for anything.
Well, no, I think but Geki Chopper, I think, appeared even earlier than this, though.
I thought he showed up in like the 30s.
Maybe. I don't know, but I don't want to go.
But I guess if you want to go off of Gokai Silver, then he would. I guess he would be the latest.
Yeah, because Geki Chopper wasn't one of.
Because usually Sixth Rangers show up like in like 16, 17, 18 range.
Yeah.
But, into episode 30 almost.
Yep. So as the episode begins, the Time Rangers fight off the V-Rex, and they damage it enough to where it's forced to retreat. And we actually find out in a flashback that the V-Rex was a failed time police experiment that they sent back through time, and it got lost in a time travel experiment, and it was trapped in that time pulse that Gian just broke open, and that's how it appeared. And unfortunately, in the middle of the battle, Tatsuya gets injured. He gets knocked out. Now, he was already injured because he was still fighting with his visor busted open in the mech fight. He gets rendered unconscious, and the Time Rangers are informed of the V-Rex's control unit, and they have to get it so that they can take control of it before it wakes back up. Now, unfortunately, as they're doing this, Naoto overhears them, and Naoto wants to get the V-Rex for himself because we're going to find out pretty quickly. Well, actually, no, I don't have to explain because we'll find out later what his motivations are. But the Time Rangers set off to get it. Gian dispatches another prisoner called Hammer to go and find it. And first, Naoto asks Wataru if he can be the captain of the City Guardians, but Wataru says no. And he says, okay, then I'll make me the leader. And that's when he decides to go get the control unit. So while the 4 Time Rangers that are conscious get locked up in a fight with Hammer, Naoto follows them, and he locates the control unit, and he gets into a fight with some Zeniths, and Tatsuya also arrives. And if you've seen Time Force, you know exactly how this happens. They fight it off, and then Naoto sticks his hand into the control unit, and it forms into a new changer called the V Commander, and he calls out TimeFire and becomes the 6th Time Ranger, TimeFire. And here's one thing that I've been waiting to talk about with this. There are a lot of shots in this scene from Time Force where Naoto is used in place of Eric, because Eric and Naoto, it's kind of insane just how similar they kind of look to each other. Like literally the scene where they use the exact same shots where after Naoto calls out TimeFire, and when Eric calls out quantum power, we can literally see Naoto's face in the Time Force episode. I've always wanted to bring that up. That's just and we should get used to seeing a lot of shots that have Naoto in them in Time Force, because that's going to happen very frequently, believe it or not. Yeah, so that's it. And we now have our 6th Time Ranger, and that's why we're going to pause right here. What do we think of a Time Ranger suit, guys? TimeFire suit. I'm sorry.
It's the best Time Ranger outfit. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't hate the Time Ranger suits in the first one, but I feel like this one is just much more consistent, because a huge gripe I have with the main 5 is that you have the black areas on the helmet, but then it gets offset with the white areas on the chest. This is perfect. Like you got white highlights on the chest, and the like white gauntlets, and I mean, even though it's red, like they give the jagged thing on the visor instead of like just the straight triangle or different shapes. So
it looks like it's on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
TimeFire.
Yeah.
Like I I know it sounds weird, but I'm going to say this because, I kind of had some choice words to say about the main 5 suits, but I actually have no gripes with this suit. Like, this might actually be one of my top 5, not top 5, maybe top 15 at worst, like, individual Ranger suits. But, yeah, can we all agree it's an awesome suit?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Dude. It is a great suit.
Yeah. Anyway, so Naoto is now TimeFire, and he goes after Hammer. We get his really awesome theme song playing in the background. And Tatsuya reveals to the other Time Rangers that Naoto is TimeFire now. And Naoto defeats Hammer with his new weapon, the DV Defender. And the episode ends with Naoto standing off with Tatsuya. So, yeah, what do we think about this one, guys?
TimeFire is awesome.
Yeah, it was just as good of an introduction as Quantum Rangers was.
Agreed. I think they're pretty much on par.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to say one's better than the other here because they're both pretty awesome.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Totally agree with that.
Can I say that maybe up to this point, this might be the second best Sixth Ranger introduction behind Spider Kimono in Sentai?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that.
I agree. And, I mean, I like his character a lot.
Yeah, I have some things to say about him, but I'll wait until we get done with the next episode.
Ooh, popcorn time.
Yeah.
It's nothing bad. It's just my dissection of the character.
And unlike the previous one, I'm actually not going to try to compare this with the Time Force episode, because even though I did just say some stuff about how the Quantum Ranger powers just come out of nowhere, that episode is still like perfect, because like we've already established why Eric resents Wes in the same way that we've established that Naoto resents Tatsuya. So yeah, I mean, I got nothing bad to say about either episode. And
now,
go ahead.
One question, because again, 10 years since I've last watched Time Force. Did we have Eric appear prior to his debut as a Ranger?
He, like I said, in the previous episode that established the Silver Guardians, Eric was there. That's when he met Wes and everything. But
nothing before that?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure there's nothing I'm forgetting.
Because, mind you, Riz, this is like episode 12 of us being introduced to Eric in Time Force. I forgot how like quickly they meet him. Like, to episode 12? Because then if you don't count the filler episode that Katie was in, which I honestly did, that was out of order. I think they should have just had that episode take place before Eric had showed up. I don't know why they did it after, but whatever.
And just to give it its score, I mean, here's the thing. I gave the Time Force episode a 10 out of 10, and I think that this is just as good. I have to give this a 10 out of 10 just on principle.
Yeah. So. I would say just because he's as good as his Power Rangers counterpart is, and he's like probably my favorite Sixth Ranger in Power Rangers, I'm going to give this a 10 also.
Yeah,
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Wow, 10 across the board. This episode is on fire, pun intended.
You've been waiting for that all day, haven't you?
Actually, no, that literally just popped into my head. Like, I literally just said, this episode is on fire, and then I just realized, oh, wow, I literally just made a bad pun.
You could have just said, maybe. Maybe I did know.
The dab is implied.
All right, so now we have Case File 30, The Roar of Fire. This is the final of TimeFire's arc. So this picks up immediately from where the previous one left off. The Time Rangers confront Naoto and they demand that he return the V Commander, but he's like, yeah, nah. In fact, I'm not only not going to give it to you, but I'm going to go after that giant dinosaur now, because I'm just as powerful as you guys now. Now, a thing to note, and this doesn't play into the rest of this episode, but it's going to end up having some pretty big implications later on, which, I mean, even the guys here don't know, but it's kind of a big deal. Taku does not have any data or information on TimeFire and the VREX. That is very important. They do mention Circuit says he has no information on the Quantum Ranger either, but that doesn't end up having much of an impact on the Time Force plot. This will. Just remember that. But anyway, so Tatsuya and Naoto get into confront each other. At the same time, Wataru approaches the Time Rangers and tries to recruit them to join the City Guardians. You guys know this if you've seen the Time Force episode. We get a huge fight between Tatsuya and Naoto, where, Naoto is just saying, like, I mean, the Time Rangers don't really need you. You're just a spoiled rich kid, and they're better off without you. And we also find out in a flashback that, remember in the second episode when we found out that Tatsuya had to go to college because he lost a karate competition? Well, guess what? Naoto is the one who beat him in a karate competition.
The plot thickens.
Yep. And, while they're fighting, Naoto is basically like saying, like, we learn more about like why Naoto is like this with Tatsuya. Like, he's just frustrated with how Tatsuya's tried to run away from everything. And he's always gotten the idea that like Tatsuya has always just been kind of unintentionally mocking him. And his attitude is, you've always had stuff that I've never had. Well, guess what? Now I finally have something that may even be better than what you have, and I'm going to keep it, damn it. Like, you gotta relate to him under those circumstances.
Basically, long story short, my toys are better than yours.
Exactly.
Well, fine. I'll take my dumpster truck and go home.
Right.
So Gian dispatches a new Londars. His name is Poacher, and he finds the VREX and places a control unit on it. And the Time Rangers, well, first they revealed that they rejected Wataru's offer, and Naoto just mocks them for that. And the Time Rangers getting into a fight with the VREX, but then finally Naoto is able to destroy the controller on its head, and he takes full control over the VREX. It's able to transform into its warrior mode VREX Robo. And let's actually pause right here. I know that it's already debuted, but now that we get to see it in all of its glory, what do we think of the VREX, guys?
I love the mech. I hate the name. It's always gonna be Q-Rex for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I did accidentally call it the Q-Rex a couple of times, but I'm gonna go out and just say that this is the best Sixth Ranger mech ever.
And while this is probably a little bit early for even mentioning it, I'm gonna say it here. I like Dino more than I like Warrior Mode.
Yeah. I mean, especially since like in later episodes, like it does have a finisher where it can do it with the DD/Quantum Defender. I always like that finisher more than the Max Blizzard.
So I'm kind of curious though. Did they ever explain what the V stands for in VREX?
I don't think they did.
Well, all the TimeFire stuff starts with V in some way. V Defender. What is it called? V Commander, and then
right. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. They said it
Vector,
because
they don't
Vector
explain
Rex?
that.
Vector Rex?
Because I know why it's called Q-Rex. It's Quantum Rex.
Yeah.
I'll just finish off this discussion. I think Eric said it best, and here's the thing. It was an improv line, so Dan Southworth completely made this up. My Q-Rex would eat his Dragon Zord for lunch. Yes, it would.
Oh, yeah.
And anybody who disagrees with me on that, come at me. Fight me.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing has bigger jaws than the freaking Dragon Zord, so obviously,
yeah.
Even in eat one little hole.
Yeah, right? even in Sentai, Dragon Caesar would get ruined by this thing.
Yeah.
Well, Dragon Caesar got ruined by Geki.
Yeah,
that's also true.
So the bar's already pretty low for the Sentai version.
But yeah, I've been wanting to say this for a long time. The Q-Rex would kick the Dragon Zord's butt, and if you disagree with me on that, come at me. I will fight you. and I am not joking.
You know what we should do, Nate?
What's that?
We should make a poll and ask our fans to vote.
And okay, but if anybody
wants
to vote
or just that Zord in particular.
Let me just ask you this one question: how many monsters did the Dragon Zord destroy by itself? Huh? Yeah, you hear that silence? Yeah, that's because it didn't destroy a single monster by itself.
And no, the fighting mode does not count, y'all, because like that he literally had to combine with 3 other Zords to do it.
The V-Rex/Q-Rex literally destroys a monster by itself in its debut battle. That alone just makes it more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Come at him, guys, if you dare.
Yeah.
Nate's on fire. No pun intended.
Okay, you
TimeFire!
But anyway, so Naoto has control. He is TimeFire and he has control of the V-Rex, so he gets promoted to captain of the City Guardians by Wataru. The episode ends with Tatsuya questioning why the Time Rangers didn't join them, but they said, hey, we like fighting with you. You're one of our friends, and we're going to keep doing so. And that's how the episode of the story arc ends. So what do we think about this one, guys?
I just want to say real quick before we get into the real thoughts. I like the motivation more in Time Force for why they didn't want to join Mr. Collins than I did here. Because in Time Force, they lean a lot more into the ethical part of the paid for mercenary support.
Yeah.
And in this one, they mention it, but they don't really hit it home as hard.
We're getting sick of corporate bullcrap.
Bullcrap.
That's essentially what they said.
We get told enough what to do as is. We don't need any more people telling us what to do.
I mean, it does make more sense for them because they basically feel like they've been left to die by their own superiors, so they don't want to work for any more superiors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even though, like, okay, I'm not trying to defend the City Guard / Silver Guardians in this aspect when I say this. They would actually have more better resources to actually be able to find the layer quicker if they did team up with them. That's the crazy part, because like they could have easily said like, oh well, they're out here in the woods. Here's their location. Here's where like the footprints go whenever they leave the prison. So damn, like they could have done that.
But and also, go ahead, Anthony.
No, also, another thing, I did not know that the Time Rangers, aside from of course TimeFire, never actually directly fight this criminal. In Power Rangers, that West fights him because they time traveled, but they never fought this guy directly.
Yeah, he just grows to giant immediately.
That was crazy to me. I was like, wow. So they never fought this guy directly. That was just threw me off. I was like, okay. Still a good episode. I was just like puzzled. I was like, really? They don't fight this guy directly? Huh.
I kind of want to give my overall thoughts, and I feel bad saying this because it's going to seem like I'm saying something bad about Eric when I really don't, because keep in mind, Eric is my favorite 6th Ranger in Power Rangers. So, and I feel like the problem that I'm about to say gets made up for in later episodes with featuring Eric, but I just feel like this episode does a better job at like establishing Naoto's real resentment for Tatsuya a lot more than with Eric, because up to this point, the only thing that we've gotten from the idea that Eric doesn't like Wes is that there's one throwaway line where he's just whining about how Wes wanted to run away from all the money, which, okay, that's fine. But, and then we get one line here where Wes is asking him for the morpher, and then Eric is all like, yeah, you're really mad that I have just as much power as you now, huh? Like, so, I mean, good stuff, good. But I feel like it's more fleshed out here where, you know, where like this karate tournament, like even the karate tournament thing, like for Tatsuya, it was just Tatsuya doing something because he made a bet with his dad. But in Naoto's case, he had to win that fight in order to get into college. Like it was a much higher stakes thing for him. And that kind of set this. Go ahead, Anthony.
And it was well established, like that. Yeah, like the reason he lost that bet was because of Naoto. It's like, wow, like that's that's the kind of like development stuff I like behind the scenes. Like we thought it was an isolated incident, and we found that, oh snap, this is the guy that beat him. Like, whoa, like, you know.
And it highlights
that means
how
a
it is
lot.
because for Tatsuya, it was just him making a petty bet with his dad. For Naoto, this was like a huge, like, if you fail, your life could be screwed up.
Yeah.
Type of situation. And that perfectly highlights how for Tatsuya, life is just a big trip to the beach because he's always had everything handed to him, and Naoto's had to fight for everything that he's had. And you can tell that Naoto resents Tatsuya for being a Time Ranger, and he's just felt that Tatsuya's always had something that he's never had. And he literally expresses it in his inner monologue with like a lot of passion behind it. Like, now I finally have something that you have, maybe even better, and it's going to stay that way. Damn it. Like, he's just, there's so much rage behind it. And I think they established that with Eric better in later episodes. But if we're talking about in the here and now for both series, I feel like Naoto's motivation is just kind of much more well established.
Yeah. As much as I love Time Force, like you explained it, like made me feel that, yeah, like I wish Time Force had done that in this series too, to make Eric seem like more of a reason why he does the things that he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's something I kind of want to add on to that, because it didn't necessarily make Eric an unlikable character in Time Force, because he still felt like he had a moral code to him. Like, he was a part of the Silver Guardians because he did want to protect people, but he also saw it as a chance to one-up Wes. Naoto here feels like he's a very, as my brother put it when I was talking to him about it last night, ends justify the means type of character.
He is.
Where it doesn't feel like he's in the City Guardians to be a protector. He's doing it because he feels like so much of an underdog that he's trying to get power by any means necessary, no matter how lowball he has to go to get it. Because Eric never really came off as a kiss-up in Time Force, but Naoto is basically almost like it's almost become like a full kiss ass to Tatsuya's dad here to try to, I want to be the leader. No, well, I'm going to give you a reason to make me the leader. So he goes out of the way to get the TimeFire power solely so he could get a position of power. And it really makes this guy come off as unlikable. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, they write him to be, like, you understand his point of view, because why would you throw away your position because you have so much money? Why would you try to run away with it? But then he goes about it in like the most douchebag ways possible. And I was wondering how they were going to how him and Eric were going to differ. And he feels more antagonistic than Eric does.
Yep.
A lot more antagonistic. So I'm having a hard time seeing how this guy ends up getting redeemed. Because Eric, you could see it that he wasn't like riding that line of evil. He was just being spiteful. Naoto feels like he's almost part bad guy. Like, full on, maybe like corrupt cop almost.
Like, even in the equivalent to these episodes, like, like in these two episodes, in the Time Force episode, there's a point where Eric is watching them fight the Q-Rex, and he's like, oh no, if I don't stop the Q-Rex, it could kill them. While in Naoto, you just get the idea of like, oh, cool, the Q-V-Rex is here. I'm going to go get it. Like,
did you ever see a moment where Naoto actively cared about the safety of the civilians?
No, he's did it for the fun.
Yeah, he's doing it because he wants power, and he's like this close to becoming a villain. Like, full up.
A certain route.
And it almost makes him a more interesting character compared to Eric, because you could almost make the case that this might be the first full-on evil ranger that wasn't like designed to be an evil ranger. Like the Neji Ranger and stuff that.
I think what they could have done here is leaned into his evilness a lot more.
Yep.
And really just had him be evil for, 10 episodes and then begin some kind of redemption arc that ends in the end arc.
Yeah, because skipping ahead to the
go ahead, Patrick.
Just because skipping ahead to the next episode, I'm not going to go into the episode. I just want to bring up a thing. Eric was always very get out of my way, Time Force Rangers. Let me do this my way. But Naota was like, I will shoot you if you don't get out of my way. I'm like, gee whiz, man, calm down.
More or less, Eric is will show that I do care, but I won't show to you on the outside unless I'm by myself. Yeah. Whereas Naoto's I honestly don't give a crap on any of y'all. I just want what's mine,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the best way to describe it, and it's kind of ironic, is that Eric is Kaiba in the original Japanese version, where it's yeah, I want to be better than you, but I have a moral code and I don't want anything bad to happen to you guys. I don't like you guys, but I don't want anything bad to happen to you. Naoto is Kaiba in the dub. Yeah, I'm a douchebag. I want power. I'm proud of it. Go cry about it if you don't like it.
You're a second-rate Time Ranger with a second-rate Chrono Changer.
You're a third-rate Time Ranger with a third-rate mech.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, what do we want to give this? Riz, did you want to add anything?
Copy and paste what Patrick said and say I agree with it.
Okay, fair enough.
Patrick said everything I wanted to say. Naoto is a true villain, or he could be a true villain in this. And honestly, I'm kind of mad they didn't make him the villain because he'd be much more entertaining than the villains we do have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we want to give this out of 10, guys?
9.
9.
Yeah, 9 for me too.
9.
Just solely because of that fight between him and Tatsu was just so good narratively wise.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to close this out with a couple of filler episodes. We get a Domon-centric filler episode called Delusion Game. That's Case File 31. So in this, it adds a little bit to the Honami story arc where the Time Rangers are dealing with a Londars that puts people through some weird psychiatric stuff, and it makes Domon question what he's fighting for, and but after dealing with the Londars, Domon realizes that Honami is very important to him and tries to meet her for a date, but she leaves before he can arrive, and he actually finds out, because she dropped her wallet, that she believes that Isa is Time Yellow, which leaves him completely devastated. He wants to reveal this to Isa at first, but he decides, no, I need to recover this from this. Only other thing to note is that this episode wasn't adapted into Time Force, and its Monster of the Day never appeared in Time Force, even in weird ways before. So what do we think about this one, guys?
So I want to ask a question before we get into the review here.
Go ahead.
I interpreted that very differently. And maybe it's the drugs talking, but I thought when Domon realizes that it's Isa as Time Yellow that she was thinking, I thought he was laughing about it. And he was kind of relieved.
Oh. Okay, maybe I interpreted differently. Maybe that's what she was trying to go.
I don't know. Am I crazy?
No,
Patrick?
I didn't know how to take it.
I don't know. I thought he just found it funny.
No, because he definitely laughed, and I thought that was him laughing out of relief because he didn't have to deal with a love story. Because love him.
It could have been both, because he did seem so reluctant to tell
Honami.
No, Isa. That she liked him. Yeah. But then he was also hesitant because he didn't want to lose that chance that he wanted.
Yeah, he thinks he could still get the chance, but I think he felt relief that the pressure was off and he could kind of figure out what he wanted to do later.
Yeah.
That's what I got out of it. I don't know. I didn't get the idea that Domon was devastated and wanted to go cry in a corner type thing.
Okay, maybe I interpreted it differently.
I mean, you could say that he was both.
Yeah.
I mean, he could.
He was relieved because he didn't have to worry about him being the one that she was into, so he didn't have to worry about the guilt of maybe leaving her behind. But at the same time, he wants to be the guy.
Yeah.
So,
and that makes more sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
and then when I come to that conclusion, I want to hug this guy.
I want to feel him too.
I feel him on an emotional level so much.
I gotta say, Domon and Sion, man, they're both fighting for that top spot in my book.
Yeah,
really I know. I know exactly how you feel, Riz.
Like,
Domon is making a case for best Yellow Ranger right now for me.
He really is, though.
Domon's gonna, yeah.
I'm sorry, Kotoha. I love you, but I'm being reminded how much I love this character.
No, I'm sorry, Luca.
Okay. I have to agree with you on that, and I'm gritting my teeth because I hate that I'm saying this. Part of my brain's like, "What are you doing, Anthony? That's our girl. Shut up." No.
I mean, Luca, Kotoha, and Himeno are all like stupid good characters.
But yes, Himeno is still the best girl.
But Domon he's making that a hard. Who's the best of these four? I don't know.
You're like, okay, y'all get back out the way. Right, you're the best. Come here.
I got to listen for y'all.
What's that?
The best yellow is CM Warren.
Who?
He's talking about the yellow Megaforce Power Ranger.
Oh.
I'm making a joke. You called me a simp?
Yeah.
I'll take it.
But wouldn't I be one too? Because I'm like a simp for Luca.
Yes, but I'm more.
Well, here's the problem. Everybody is, so it's not just a you problem.
Okay, that's fair. I'm not like the only one that's thinking that's like. Oh.
No, I'm the Sierra Hana simp. All right.
Well, when we start doing Maji Ranger, you might find me simping for Maji Blue, but we'll get to that later.
That's a topic for a different day if we were Sentai.
Yeah. Keep it in your pants.
Toku Secrets after hours.
What do we think of
AnimeSecrets.org?
But what do we want to give this one out of 10, guys?
I'm gonna give this a 9. I think
I'll give it an 8 too.
No, Domon took me on a personal level here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Anthony.
Oh, I'll give it a 9 as well.
Okay, and Nate.
Yep.
8.
Okay.
All right, so next up we have Case File 32, Save the Criminal. It's a Shion-centric filler episode. This is one of those episodes where if you've seen pretty much copies the Time Force episode, and it have the same plot.
I think Time Force copied this.
Yeah, but they take different approaches with it, admittedly, and we'll talk about which is better in a second. But in this episode, we have a Londars that's on the run from Guillen because he wants nothing to do with his former life as a criminal. Naoto also wants to kill it because Naoto is a jerk. And a big thing to note is that this episode the Time Rangers reveal to Naoto how they deal with the Londars. And, they don't kill them. They freeze compress them and put them in jail. And, and Naoto has Sion cornered and ready to kill him, but then he intentionally misses. The only other thing to note is that the Londars of the day of this episode, Didi Lattice, he was actually seen in the very first case file when they were demonstrating how the freeze compress system works. That was done. It was done in Time Force, but with a different mutant. But that's about it. What do we think about this one, guys?
This is the episode I was talking about earlier where Naoto was being a poo-poo head. Poo-poo head. He didn't give a crap about anybody's livelihood.
No.
But I did like how Shion was like, I mean, he's genuinely trying to reform himself. I gotta protect him. I gotta keep him safe. And this guy was like, I just want to live out my. I like the dynamic between those two in this episode, and it just drove another nail in Naoto's coffin of being like, because he's just so merciless here.
Yeah,
he is not hesitant to hold up his gun to the other Time Rangers, and the dynamic between these five and him is a lot more interesting to me, honestly.
Yeah, but with that said, I might a tad prefer the Time Force episode just because
I feel the same way.
The ending, like with the ending, Trip says, "Oh, Eric's not mean; he's just lonely," and then it ends with Wes watching Eric drive away, and he's like, "Wait, Eric is lonely? I never thought about that before." And then in the very next episode, they practically play up like their entire premise based on that final scene.
Yeah.
And that's an episode that gets adapted from another Time Ranger episode that'll be in the next batch. But so I don't know. Like, I feel like the Time Force episode, and I think that this episode is great, but I feel like the Time Force used the plot of this episode to kind of segue into an Eric episode, which, and maybe it's just because I love that Eric episode. Like, I think it's the best episode of Time Force. That's not the finale, but I don't know.
It almost felt like Naoto missing was almost out of pity. Like,
yeah.
Okay, fine, I'll let you go. Just shut up and leave me out of this, you know?
Right. As opposed to Eric was like, dang, like, this guy's an alien.
Yeah. I mean, he actually didn't want to hurt them.
Yeah.
So he was like, fine. But Naoto, it seems like he's just like, yeah, you know what, fine. I'm getting done hearing of this whole, mushy stuff. Just go.
Yeah, and even the ending, like, kind of shows the difference in like theirs, where like with Naoto, he just walks up to them and says, "All right, cool. I'll just beat them into submission, and then you can freeze them. I don't care."
Yeah, it's like, you guys don't kill them. I don't agree with that, but fine. Like, I'm too good for you or something. Like,
but like but in the Time Force episode, Eric is all like, "Hey, if the next time a mutant attacks, get out of my way, because I'll run right over you if I have to do it in order to stop these mutants." So,
and then he became all racist, like a freak of nature.
Oh yeah,
F aliens.
He's not even human. Look at him. He's a freak.
He's a phony.
I'm mutant phobic. I'm mutant phobic.
But at the same time, I feel like it's kind of difficult to compare these two episodes, because you could argue that even though they have the same plot, they approach it in a different way, because in the Time Force episode, Notakon, that was the name of the monster, he got arrested and freezed because he stole some vegetables.
It's like, really, though? Y'all really? Like, we're really gonna freeze a mutant because he stole stuff? Like,
but it does play into the overarching theme of like racism. Like, a mutant did something, he was turned away, he got freeze compressed because of that. I mean, it plays off with Eric wanting to kill the mutant because he's a mutant. While here, it's more about like true justice, where like the monster legitimately did something horrible, like he was selling missiles to people.
He made bombs, apparently, or like a bomb smuggler or bomb maker or whatever.
Yeah, and Naoto wants to kill him, but the Time Force but the Time Ranger people, they're like, no one deserves to die, no matter what their crime is. Like, so same plot, but honestly, the more I think about it, these episodes are actually pretty different from each other.
Yeah, I think Time Ranger may have handled the monster a lot better, because seeing him be genuinely like apologetic to the point where he was almost willing to die just because he thought he deserved it. Like that was depressing.
Yeah.
But
I gave so the more I think about it, maybe this and the Time Force episode are about on equal ground, but it's kind of difficult to do it because they're both very different. But I gave the Time Force episode an 8, and I'm probably going to give this one an 8 too.
Yeah, I would say an 8 too.
Yeah,
I'll give it an 8 as well.
Wait, did I give the Time Force episode an 8? Hold on, I'm looking at this at the doc. Hold on. Yeah, I gave it an 8.
To the notes.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything?
Nah,
I'm good.
All right, let's move on to the very last case file. It's another filler episode. It's for my man Ayase because it's about time he got a focus episode in this batch.
I'm feeling indifferent about this episode, but we'll watch it. We'll review it soon. I'll say my rants for later.
Ayase gets hired by a little girl to be her bodyguard. She's on the run from the Londars because they've kidnapped her father. Only thing to note is that Naota only appears at the end of this episode to use the V-Rex to help freeze compress the Londars, and he only appears transformed. I got some stuff I want to say in a very positive light, so if anybody wants to go first, they can go ahead.
Anthony, you go first because mine's gonna hit Nathan harder than yours will.
Go
I already
ahead.
know what your argument is.
Why did the dialogue have to include calling a little girl, saying, little girl, if I grow up, I want to marry you, whatever, and then him saying, I can't wait, you because like you be nice and sexy, and I'm just, I don't know, that's not what he actually said, but he said something with the word sexy in it.
The exact quote was, I promise to marry you when I get older, and he's like, you better get a lot more sexy than you are right now for that to happen.
You made it worse. Oh, you made it sound worse than what I was interpreting it
FBI,
as.
open up!
And then it didn't help that earlier he was on the call with her, and he was like, I like mature women are more fine or more sexy and refined. I'm just like, why would you say that?
Yeah, Ayase lost some points for this for me.
He really did. I'm just like, if they just not have him say that, I would have been very fine with it. It's now making me go like, well, dang, like I think Time Force did a better job with this episode than that did. Just for that alone.
Was that
my rant's over.
I just have the visual of that one section from a video where like that SWAT team busts into the house and he like slams the vase against the wall and he like slips while he's going down the drop rope and lands on the dinner table and all. You know what I'm talking about, Anthony?
Everything. I know. I've seen it 1,000 times.
So I think we should do a positive sandwich here. Nathan, you go, then I'll go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay, I get what you're saying, and that comment might actually make my score to go down a little bit, but the reason why I give this a positive is because, so this is a staple type of filler episode that we see in a lot of Sentai, where like the serious and anti-social ranger of the group has to like interact with the little kid, and I have a soft spot for these types of episodes. We reviewed that.
Really? You like Zero Ranger that much?
Okay. You know what I mean, dude. I walked right into that. I feel like an idiot. I
mean, yeah, you kind of did.
Yeah.
Like Riz and like Patrick wasn't in on this podcast, but remember that like that episode of Jetman where a guy had to help out a little girl. Like, you know, I love that. And one of my favorite Abba Ranger episodes is where the Tricera guy gets turned into a little kid, and
I've seen that episode.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't know, like I just feel like these episodes just, you know, allow us to kind of see more of a soft spot. Now, the more I think about your comments, I realize that maybe they went a little too far with that, so I can agree with that. But but I don't know. I thought that like Ayase and Emery were kind of cute. You know, Ayase is pretty badass when he gets angry when Emery gets hurt. And honestly, like the reason why I would say this is better than the Time Force episode is because the Time Force episode takes place immediately after Eric has been promoted. So the Time Force episode has to dedicate like a good chunk of its runtime to like establishing Eric as the leader of the Silver Guardians. Now, to be fair, that plays a part in the episode because in the Time Force episode, the little girl's dad is the guy researching the Quantum Ranger powers, and Rancic wants to get it. So, and I like the Time Force episode. Don't get me wrong, I really like it, even if it is a Lucas episode. But it, I don't know. I just feel like, again, I thought when Emery said she would marry ISA, that was adorable. Now, the more I think about it, ISA did make it creepy with his comments, but
it was not adorable.
It was not.
What do you mean it wasn't adorable?
It was not. His reaction was not adorable to that.
Oh, his reaction, yeah. I won't defend that, but
yeah,
I thought Emery was cute enough as it was.
Emery was really cute.
Chris Hansen just peeps around the corner.
He said, I say, have a seat. Have a seat here.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Riz, you can go ahead.
Okay. I didn't like this episode at all. And it's not because of the kid episode or the story or anything, but it's been over 10 episodes now since the last time we had any mention of ISA's condition outside of Tatsuya trying to protect him in that two-parter from getting his heart messed up. And I kind of would have preferred another kind of episode that dealt more with ISA and his personal struggles rather than him being a bodyguard to some little girl who's in need of emotional support after her parents are like in a bad state.
Yeah.
Like there was so many different ways they could have gone to make an ISA-centric episode. And like you said, Nate, it's been a while. We haven't had one since, I think, episode 15 or 16, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So it's been a while, and there's a lot of heavy stuff going on with ISA that we need to cover. And we're not covering it because we're too busy making him into a pedo, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Yeesh.
Yeah, it does feel like, and I think we talked about this last time. It's because I've seen two other seasons that this writer's done, and it feels like those two seasons use their filler episodes better, especially Shinkenger.
Yeah.
Or each filler episode, even if it didn't directly tie into the plot, did something useful with the character that it tried to focus on. And instead of it just being like, oh, well, they're in the spotlight, they're the main characters of the episode, it tried to do something with them.
Well,
Gingaman yeah, but Gingaman didn't do that all the time, but there was a lot more good filler episodes than bad in Gingaman. Here, it really feels like they're just missing the step with these.
I mean, okay, so let me start. Let's do the scores real quick so we can go into like the overarching discussion, because my next set of thoughts will go there.
Okay.
I agree. The more I think about it, I feel like the filler episodes where Domon and Shion have been central characters.
Those have been good.
Those are the best ones, yeah.
But the more I think about it,
other three have had bad story all throughout.
Yeah. But yeah, okay. I originally gave. I still like these types of plots, so I'm gonna probably give it a 5 just because I have a soft spot for these types of episodes. But I get your criticism, so I'm sympathetic. But I don't know. Maybe it's just because I have a soft spot.
Also, I'm a little annoyed at the fact that how long it's like out of all these episodes, Tatsuya is still the only one who knows about his secret. No one else has figured out but him.
Because they're not putting any centralized focus on him. But before we get to that, how low can I go on the score here?
You want to give it a 0?
No, I'm thinking like a 0.5.
Fair enough.
The kid was cute.
I'm gonna give it a 3. The girl was kind of annoying though. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Nah, kid is adorable. ISA was terrible.
That's. I'm always gonna call her like a kind of annoying. Was the stuff that she was doing. You know, I get. I get why she was doing the stuff because like she really wanted to hurry up and get to that mountain. So I'm not really too upset with her about that when I fully watched the episode. But that was the only thing.
Yeah, and like I don't know, watching these episodes, I understand why Nathan was hyping up Blue to me so much in the beginning. Like before we even got to Timeranger, you spent a long time hyping us up about Blue being so amazing. I see why you think that. Or at least I think I see why you say that, given how far into the season we are right now. And it's to do with the medical sorrow he's going to be facing later on, I'm assuming, and the stuff he's dealing with right now. But they're just doing this character dirty, man. Like, he doesn't get very much character development. Like, he had one bit about his medical problem with Tatsuya. He then basically was in the background, didn't do anything notable for 10 plus episodes. Like, the things that he did do could have been done by anyone. It wasn't anything that he had to do. It was basically just throw any character you wanted this problem and they can fix it for you. So they don't do much for him at all, and it really annoys me because I see where, but he's not. And the same thing I have to say for Tatsuya, because I see what they're trying to do, but they're just missing the mark. Like 26 episodes and no real struggle for Tatsuya or like revelation of the struggles that he went through in life. I mean, I don't know. It's just it's not good story writing. It's not good character development. So I just don't see it for these two. Yuri, I'll give a pass to for right now because like you guys said, I do see Yuri at least moving in the direction I would want her to move in a bit throughout, because she does have a reserved characterization in the beginning, and she is a bit more closed off, and it kind of makes sense why now at episode 26. So I can kind of accept that, but Tatsuya trying to be main character, but not really like airing out his stuff and spending like I think 2 or 3 episodes doing martial arts stuff. I mean, that's cool. I'm glad you like martial arts, buddy, but let's talk about your family.
But I would argue that they kind of like, and I'm not going to try to defend Tatsuya in regards to Wes because I do think that Wes is the better character here. But I feel like
I'm not even comparing them to Wes right now. I'm just talking about Tatsuya on his own.
But I mean, in terms of Tatsuya, like they establish why he has a passion for martial arts and why he's not talking about his family because he was bullied and harassed for being connected to that family to the point where like he doesn't want it anymore. He wants to be his own person. And I feel like, and I get what you're saying that like, 26 episodes in, that's really like, yeah, fair enough. I get that. But I do feel like in this batch, we've established well why Tatsuya wants to do that. And I feel like that's a step in the right direction for his character.
It is. And I'm not trying to say Tatsuya is terrible. I'm just trying to say that this writer struggles to do characterization for characters. And the biggest thing I wish she would have done differently, like, okay, if they had laid out the family drama before then, it might have helped me feel more connected to Tatsuya for when him and Naota started going at it. Because when Naota starts going at it with him, I'm like, okay, whatever. Rich kid, cool. But we don't feel that emotional investment in Tatsuya for what he's gone through because it's just mentioned once. And we don't really see it too much beyond that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I mean, the same for ISA. Like, he has such a good story that he could be exploring through the season, but they barely give him any screen time.
And yeah, and I know, and I think the problem that I have with like hyping him up, because keep in mind, I first watched this Sentai all the way through like 8 years ago, and I was a dumb 20-year-old guy who, you know, might have got suckered in. Like, it's the same thing with like with like I was gonna say a different Sentai where I might have got suckered in by some of the like visuals and like some of the style, but watching it again, I realized that like the substance isn't there as much. Now I'll still defend this. I feel like there's a lot more substance to this than the other two Sentai that I'm talking about. Because I feel like it's still there, and I feel like when this comes to an end, this is still going to be like an A-tier Sentai for me. But
which Sentai are you thinking about?
I really don't want to say it because I really don't want you to go into a rant, buddy.
Are you gonna go on about Gekiranger right now?
I got suckered in by like some of the style of that show without.
Okay, I'm not gonna rant at you for that. So please give your opinion in the fullest. I promise to not rant.
Well, okay,
No,
with
he's just
with
setting you up,
Gekiranger,
man.
with Gekiranger, I acknowledged that the main three Rangers weren't as great characters. I've never been a fan of John, even when I originally watched it. But
really? Good.
Yeah, but I was suckered in by like the style of the storytelling because I really liked the story that they had behind Jukin and everything. It was very expansive and all that, and that's what suckered me in. But when I watch it again, already knowing all that stuff, there's nothing left to watch to like do it. I don't know. Like sometimes you can watch a movie and really like it, and then you watch it again many years later and realize, hey, maybe this thing kind of sucks. And that's exactly how I'm still going to defend Jetman. I don't think Jetman sucks, but Gekiranger is a pure example of something where you watch it once when you're a bit younger and like, hey, this is amazing. And then you watch it many years later, it's like, oh my God, did I actually like this? Wow.
No, Jetman is just average. There's nothing. Jetman didn't do anything phenomenal except for the villains, I'd say, and Black. Gekiranger just sucked.
Yeah.
Like, there's no redeeming qualities of Gekiranger. You cannot convince me otherwise.
But I do think that this is a couple of pegs up on it because
up on which one?
Upon, you know, my rewatching of other than Jetman and Gekiranger, because here there's a lot of substance here, and I do feel like there's a lot of great things. In fact, I mean, funnily enough, I thought that Sion was the most boring character, and watching it again, I realized just how great of a character he is.
Yeah, I was so mad at you whenever I started watching. I was like, dude, why are you bashing on Sion? He's so great.
Right.
So like
like me and Nate talked before I started watching Timeranger. He's like, yeah, so you're gonna love Blue. Blue's gonna be your favorite. Red and Pink are pretty great, but they're nowhere near Zen and West. Yellow is pretty awesome, better than Katie. And then he was talking about this. I'm like, but none of that. Sion is better than what you're saying. Sion's not garbage.
Yeah. And I realized that rewatching it.
Yeah, because Sion, he might be top 10 or top 15 green.
Well, before we get into the character rankings, I mean, you and I just kind of had a bit of a back and forth. Patrick, Anthony, you want to add anything with just the overall thoughts?
What, from this batch of episodes?
Yeah.
Or just in general so far?
I'm gonna go back to a point I was talking about earlier. It's like, as long as they stick the landing at the end and they don't shove everything into like the final 10 episodes, I don't necessarily think them starting late on some of these plot lines is a bad thing per se. It is better if they start them earlier. I will agree with that. Yeah. And it's again another reason why I love Shinkenger so much, because it is everybody's character arc started early. and slowly weaved throughout the season at a pretty solid pace until the ending where everything kind of came together. And in comparison, she didn't write this season the same way. Now, granted, Shinkenger was like, 15 years later, so she was probably a bit more experienced writer at the time.
Or like 9 years.
15 years later?
Gingham,
9
however
years.
long nine, it was 9. Jeez.
Yeah.
I thought there was a bigger gap between the two of them. But even comparing Gingham Man, which was two seasons before this, I don't know what her deal is here, because I've said this a handful of times. I thought Gingham Man had handled its characters better than this.
I don't know. Maybe her experience writing on Kamen Rider maybe really helped her go from this to Shinkenger. Because after this, she did Kamen Rider Ryuki, and then she did Kamen Rider Dino.
But again, it feels like she took a step backwards here from Gingham Man to this. And I know we're going to talk about Gingham Man next, so Riz and everybody will be able to understand what I mean by that. But I don't know. I'm just so confused by some of the way she's approached this. I don't think how she's done it is bad. It's just more confusing compared to the other two things I've seen her write.
Yeah. But I mean, there's similar problems with Tokusatsu, which I believe she also wrote.
Yep, she did.
She didn't really do well with that either, character-wise.
But I think this is, as far as the seasons that I would rank from her, at least up to this point, like, because, I mean, even then, like, I have to watch the remaining episodes too, since I'm rewatching this. Like, Shinkenger is number 1, Gingham Man is number 2. I would put this over Tokuger. I think this is a lot better than Tokuger.
What about Go Busters?
Oh, Go Busters.
Yeah, what about Go Busters?
Go Buster goes above Tokuger, and
I have to watch Go Busters again, because I've watched Go Busters even long before.
Well, isn't that what we're gonna watch? That's what we're gonna watch after Gingham Man anyway.
Well, okay, so I watched Go Busters not too long ago, like maybe 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
What, for Beast Morphers?
No, I watched Go Busters, not Beast Morphers.
No, I meant because of Beast Morphers.
Oh, no, because I was watching it after Gokaiger ended.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But then I stopped watching and I picked it up again and finished it years later. But I think I'd have to rewatch it again to confirm, but I think Timeranger has better ideas than Go Busters for character development, but I think Go Buster sticks to landing more often than not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And again, I see what you're saying, and maybe I just, like, I don't know, like, maybe unless I've seen a Sentai, like, very recently, I need to stop letting myself get suckered in with some of these things. Now, but I really don't want to compare this to how I felt about Geki Ranger, because I do think that this is a legitimately good Sentai still.
No,
all these years later, right?
I mean, okay, so for me, where we are right now at episode 33, if you were to ask me to grade this Sentai on the first 33 episodes, I would probably lean on a 6 or 7 for an average season. Like, they have good stuff in there. There's a lot of things you need to polish up and make better, which I'm hoping they'll handle in the last, 12, 15 episodes, I think?
Yeah.
If they can stick to landing, like Patrick said, the 6 or 7 will probably increase to an 8. I'm expecting to end this on an 8. But as of right now, there's a lot of things that are faltering, making me think this is more like a 6 or 7. But based on everything I've heard from people not named you guys as well, I tend to think I'll raise that score by the end of this.
I'm not sure where I would put this at the moment, because the more I sit here and think about it, it feels like this is one of those cases of where Timeranger did right, Time Force did wrong, and where Time Force did right, Timeranger does wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so the best way I can explain my thoughts on that, Patrick, is I would love a season with Wes, Jen, Sion, Domon, and I think ISA is better than Lucas, but I need more from ISA to say that concretely.
Yeah.
But
it's
what
just
about
like
Naoto and Eric?
I'm not going there. Don't even
I this
I'm not
almost
going there
comes
either.
back. This almost comes back to the idea when we were talking about Geki Rangers. Like if we could put the Jungle Fury cast in the Geki Rangers plot, it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
But it seems like
there'd be no walkie-walkie.
Yeah. But it's like every time we talk about something Time Ranger did right, I'm like, Time Force, that was one of the things we complained about in Time Force. And then when we talk about the things that Time Ranger's doing wrong, that's the things we compliment Time Force on. So it's like somewhere in the middle there's something good here. And it's not necessarily a bad thing because I think we can agree that Time Force is at least a top 3 Power Ranger season.
Oh, of course, 100%.
For most of us.
Yeah.
It's a 10.
Yeah. I have soured on Time Force a little bit over the years to the point where I think SPD is slightly better, but it's still a number 3 for me.
Well, I still call
you go
Space better than
SPD and Time Force?
I would go Space, SPD, Time Force for me. But if this stays on this track where it's like I can't really decide which one I think is better, then I would still consider that a good thing for this season. Because it's being compared to an SSS plus tier Power Ranger season pretty evenly.
Yeah.
So
and there are things that you're right. The Sentai does things that Time Force doesn't do well, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But I think this comes down to who we are as people and where we land on this.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you say that because that's literally what I was thinking. Like, there's a lot of things that Time Force doesn't do right, that Time Ranger does right. And it's funny how, like, ultimately, which you like better is going to come down to just your personal taste.
Personal
I find
preference,
it very interesting that you're saying that.
Yeah, because for me, I'm very character-driven. I want a strong character story arc. I want a strong plot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about anything else, like the visuals, the aesthetic, whatever. It could be god-awful suits like Tokusatsu, but if you give it a good story, I'd love it.
Oh yeah, if you had a story as great as like Time Forces, but you had those ugly Battle Fever chases,
we're not going
it would still be good. It would still be good. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
but that's the thing is that at this point, are they evenly matched to you, Patrick? And I'm asking you specifically because you mentioned
Time Force and Time Ranger. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say it's weird because it sounds like we're giving Time Ranger a lot of crap in some cases, but genuinely this is a good season, like a great season up to this point. It's just the things it does wrong does stick out in comparison to its PR counterpart.
Because Time Force did those good.
Yeah, exactly. But then you can also look at it the other way. If we were watching Time Force for the first time after having seen Time Ranger so many times, we'd be saying the same things. But like, man, blue, green, and yellow in this season are terrible by comparison. And, like the villains are amazing and stuff like that. So it's like,
but the villains are amazing because the villains in this suck right now.
Yeah, but like,
and by the way, that's my villain analysis. They suck.
Yeah, the villain analysis. Yeah.
2 words.
Let's just wrap this up with our updated character rankings. Anybody wants to go first?
Give me a second to think about it. You'll go first.
I'd probably go Domon, Sion, Yuri, Tatsuya, ISA, and I'm not ranking Naoto because I honestly don't know where to put him in this yet.
Okay. Yeah,
I need to see a little bit more of him before I can accurately rank him.
I can't rank Naoto either. That's why I said I need time to think about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because he genuinely has some good qualities, but I want to see him do more before I can tell you.
It's more of a matter of he's not really a part of the team, and I want to see where his dynamic with the Time Rangers ends up going forward before I can accurately.
I think something we didn't touch on that I want to bring up real quick. I found it interesting that maybe 3 episodes after, maybe 2 episodes after his debut, he's just now learning about the freeze compress.
Mhm.
And I thought that was a very interesting thing that shows that nobody gave him the lay of the land whenever he took on the powers because he didn't give him a chance to.
Yeah, I mean
he doesn't care.
Right.
I mean his change with the changer actually gave him like, oh yeah, like your freeze compression is about to start if you do this move. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means, but I'll try it.
I'm gonna use it. I don't know what it does, but I'm gonna do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But for me, ranking the main 5, Sion, Domon, Yuri, ISA, and then Tatsuya.
Anthony?
For me, it's Domon, Sion, Yuri, Tatsuya, and ISA.
I can respect that, Anthony.
I'm putting ISA not just because of the fact that what happened with the last episode we did. Obviously, that's not just it. I do also have an issue with the fact that like they aren't utilizing yet. Like this man has a like disease that's slowly killing him, and they're not really focusing on it a little bit more. I'm like, where is that at? Hopefully, they will soon. But I just wish they would just kind of like.
It feels like, seeing how we're watching this alongside King Oger, he feels like the Kaguraki, where he's an interesting character, but he's the one that's left out to dry. Almost.
I don't know why, but I've been like not been watching King Oger since we did a review on it. I'm like, where?
I watched the next episode after, and spoilers from when we did that podcast. Yanma has gained some more stocks.
Oh, okay.
His stocks are going up.
Big statement coming from you with that one.
Right.
But
why?
Me,
I like Yanma.
Sorry. You want me to get mine now?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm gonna put Domon at the top. I've always really liked Domon, but I kind of forgot how awesome of a character he is. He's definitely at the top. I'm gonna put Shion next. I actually do have to put Yuri here. After that, because I think she's awesome. I'm gonna put Isa over Tatsuya. I think the way that his arc is gonna wrap up, in my opinion, at least as far as I remember, was pretty good. And I'll still stand by that. I think he's a top 5 blue. Although, to be honest, Yanma might start trying to upstage him. And
Yanma stocks are rising. You cannot stop that man.
Because I don't know. Maybe the reason why I put him as like my number 1 blue was also just because the only other blue the one blue guy before, keep in mind this was before Yanma came around, that I thought was capable of like upstaging him was Joe from Gokaiger, because I thought Joe was an awesome character too. Not that, and I liked Goki, but he was more of a comic relief, a fun character, but not
Ryosuke.
Yeah,
it's not a great.
Don't you?
He's all right.
Goki is Ginga Blue, by the way, Riz.
Okay, that's what I was kind of assuming, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, Goki.
So,
I mean,
up to this point, Isa is still in my top 5 blues. Maybe he's a peg lower, but I'm still putting him above Tatsuya, and and yeah, I don't know where I would put Naoto either, because here's the thing. I mean, he's a great character, but it's kind of weird how to place him because he's not even a hero. He's a villain, basically.
Yeah.
So you can't even place him there adequately. So yeah, anybody what do we all want to say for their closing thoughts?
I survived the podcast on drugs.
Everybody give him a round of applause.
Hey.
For the record, to the listeners.
Also,
I'm on prescription.
Stop making ISA say weird things in Sunday episodes. I'm still feeling very uncomfortable with that.
Don't worry, he's not going to say anything weird as far as I remember.
Okay, good, because that was terrible. Who wrote this episode needs to have their ass beat. I'm sorry. Like, you need your ass beat that line. I'm sorry.
I actually might question that, Anthony, because it may not be the original Japanese writer. It might be the subtitle translation.
Yeah, the translations could be a bit
Yeah, but if you actually listen to what he actually says, he does say the word sexy when he's talking to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think my closing thoughts are, I don't think I've been more interested in how a Sixth Ranger is going to affect the dynamic of a story going forward more than this one. And I'm really excited to see how TimeFire is handled going forward.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't know. Only other thing, the more I think about it, that line that ISS said was creepy. And if you want to find a more charming way to say it, just I refer you to how Guy was talking with that little girl in that one episode of Jetman. It's like, hey, if only you were just a little bit younger. I mean, a little bit older. Like, just like he said it in a charming way, but didn't sound creepy at all.
Yeah.
But that's Guy. He can get away with anything. So
yeah. As he punches Ryu and drives off on his motorcycle immediately after saying that.
Right. while Ryu was offering him a light for his cigarette.
Yeah.
Sorry, that scene will never not be funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, this wraps up our Time Ranger case files 21 through 33. Next time we'll be doing 33 through 46, basically doing all of the remaining episodes up until leading up to the in-game story arc.
34?
34.
Yeah, because this one ended at 33. Dude.
Yeah, so we're doing 34. You said 33. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay, 34 to 46. So yeah, that's going to be how it is. We thank you guys so much for taking the time to check this out. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, leave any comments down below with what you think of Time Ranger up to this point. Leave any comments down below on like a Sentai you'd like to see us cover in the near future. Also, if you're watching this on Spotify and iTunes, be sure to leave us a review. We love all you guys because we've been getting a lot of good reviews on Spotify and iTunes, and we very much appreciate that. With that said, also leave us commentary at animesecrets.org. And in the future,